Yeah,
Because
and
I didn't see
his
that
two
on the
lots
list.
aren't in Avatar, but they will be after, now that the tax bill has gone out. I guess M&N can update Avatar before the tax bill, so that's why.
So from what I remember, Silver Scones, we needed they had some homework to do, right? A plan.
They were supposed to,
A letter from-
the wetland scientist was eventually supposed to come, cause she had given us a sketch, and she said they didn't have enough time to
Sure.
draft
They
it.
should
and
now.
whatnot. Yeah, right now.
And a letter from the Conservation Commission saying you can upgrade this, you can maintain your road.
That was in the
Yeah, it should have been in the
correspondence,
package
it'll be in the file.
I emailed you, so
Yeah,
look in
Oh,
the
okay. I didn't see this.
folder, I think. Yeah, I hope that helped mailing it ahead of time.
yes.
That did, yeah.
Especially where
a lot.
there's such an amount of paper. Are you ready, are you guys ready for me to let them in?
Yeah. Do we have a bunch of meeting minutes we need to get? Fine.
Yeah, I, that, where, the October ones, I was 9 pages
They're
into
in the
it,
folder.
and
Did
my
you
file
find them?
got corrupted, so I have to redo that, but we still have others that we need to do.
Do we do those meeting minutes get posted within 5 days?
Yeah,
They do?
but
Okay.
like I said, I,
Not always, right?
No, they
I-
don't.
They don't. In the handbook it says
Yeah,
if
we're
they're
supposed
not,
to.
then they're
yeah,
we get in trouble. We can get.
Yeah.
yeah, or I lost the file, I have the corrupted file to prove it, so.
Oh, okay.
So I have to redo that.
But we don't
that
do,
one.
you don't post them
You
until
post it.
after we've approved them.
Well, draft. She was supposed to
I
draft.
Do
posted
you
them
post a
as-
draft?
As draft, it says
Okay.
draft
Okay.
across it, it says draft in the title. Only because they kept asking me, and like.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good idea.
And
And then we can update it with the final
But
one.
that's why
Yeah.
the newer ones aren't, cause I'm still
Where
recreating.
was the one from Manana Conservation saying?
The Conservancy one?
No, that was just from Bob Boynton, though, right?
That one's from Bob,
No,
yeah.
this one's from Bob Boynton in
But
here.
where's the one from Manana Conservancy saying?
It should be in Nancy's package.
Oh, the big thick one.
The big thick one.
Oh.
Yeah. So what I did is I broke it out, that's how I divided
Oh, okay.
each
I
of the
didn't see
different
that.
things, so.
So one of these is from the Manana Conservation saying.
Should be.
I've
If not,
seen
I'll
that.
get it out of my file.
I probably have it here, it's probably, that's the last letter we received from them, right?
I thought I read through everything, but
I'm getting closer, cause.
try to regulate. I thought this was just her appeal to the driveway permit.
Yeah, but you included the stone wall.
Was it the August 18th letter?
The children are here.
Yeah, I'm just about, we're
Yeah,
just
I'm
trying to,
not letting them in, believe me.
I will go out shortly.
Oops.
We have to,
It's-
right?
We
Yes,
have to.
we have to, because it's posted for 7 o'clock.
Is this the one?
She's got it, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
You guys
That's-
are all set now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
good,
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's,
Okay, so
that's the
there's a
original
newer
one
one?
that said you cannot update. Well, what is the date on that one?
August 18th.
Yeah, that was the original one. What'd you say?
Can you move away from the door so I can open it? Now, are we going to do the application?
Should probably do those because we know we're gonna get chewed
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't see.
Oh.
We have it somewhere.
I
Did you
got it
see
in an
one?
email. I have it in
You
an
saw it?
email. Yes,
An email from Canada Conservation saying.
yes. It was
I don't see that.
Give me
Kinda
a
bugs
second.
me.
not recently, but yes. in the
Oh,
past.
oh, okay. I
Yeah.
guess we did say that back in October. I guess we were looking for it.
If I find it, I'll
I
send
found
it.
the one from about scenic roads, but
Hi.
I.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so where's the contacts?
don't think so.
Good evening.
It's cold in there.
Yes, I had
You can have a nap. You can take a
Oh,
nap.
okay. So you guys you have the application for the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah.
That
It's
was-
in
that
the,
was from-
it's, so she, it was in the back, yeah, folder she gave. Yeah, it's the packet, the big.
That is the application.
Yeah,
for
take that.
Sorry. That one I did see.
Did you?
Sure.
I don't see the one for you.
It's this big, row.
Actually, you should read
This
those
is
that
the phone number.
Yes, it says it is. Oh.
The original, the original. I just wanted to look at something.
So they can, yeah, right? Is it okay?
I have, this is from, when I spoke the last time. I don't know if I gave you a copy.
Just leave it with Susan. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, how are ya? How you been?
Or do I just go there, just
I
like?
am okay.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, thanks.
It's okay. It's alright. This is one of my ones.
Hi.
Hi, do you want to meet with
Oh, okay, yes, these were our statements from the last meeting.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, this too.
Are these the ones you read?
Yes, those are the ones we read.
Yeah. Alright.
One for Dan and signing. So that's it. Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you find it?
I didn't know.
Thinking maybe we can hand it out.
You're fine. I know, right? At work. You were good?
You never
Even the Board of Selectmen, this office, at least, they received a bad local service.
Yep.
in
I
order.
think that's where I started.
At my house.
Now,
Maybe that's something new from my brain.
they come? We, Susan, we, I'll make sure that we left seats for them, because they have the thing fast.
For the other
Yeah.
case, yeah.
Those would have been the October ones.
Thank you for asking.
Seriously, I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Yeah. Should be here a while.
You left them on.
Rachel, we left you keys, because you have your keys first.
Perfect.
And
then I can remember.
I know.
Thank you very much.
I know. Hi. Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. We're gonna get started. We have a few minor details to attend to before we get on to the main topic of the night. A couple applications have been submitted. We're just gonna hear them real quick and get them processed so they're not waiting till who knows what hour. First up is Ed Rock. Oh, wait for Susan.
Yeah.
Sorry, getting ahead of myself here. Wait for Susan to show back up.
Could you speak a little bit louder? We can't hear you clearly
Yes.
back here.
Sorry. Nothing's changed on the commercial, it's just the same exact.
Just clean it up a little bit, but better. We just gotta go through.
No butters.
Yeah.
I don't know why I put it on the emancipation.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, like that. Alright. Mr. Rogers, we're gonna, sorry for those that couldn't hear, we're gonna hit a couple applications real quick, get those out of the way so other people aren't gonna have to wait all night for those. Ed, are you submitting an application for
Joe Edwards?
Joe Edwards? Is that, is that essentially the same thing as it was before, or?
Essentially the same thing, yeah. To the extent that there's some debate as to whether or not his special exception is expired, we figured it's probably best. We've submitted a site plan application to the planning board, and just in case there is some question as to whether or not his special exception is expired, we felt we should come back and renew it.
'Cause that was, when was that original one from? 2000?
It was
Uh,
granted in October of 2017.
Oh, okay, yeah, alright, so we should hear it again. Alright, well, let's just, let us go through the list of butters and confirm that we have everybody.
Do you need that sign-in sheet? Oh,
No.
I thought you said.
Oh, sorry, no,
No.
just on the application.
And there are butters in New Ipswich and Greenville because of the location of
That's
the
right.
property.
16, 19, so we need. Ed, I'm looking at the copy of the map sheet
Mm-hmm.
in the lot next door, which is 18.
Yeah,
That list.
I think it's
Is that
tapped,
tap?
and because there's multiple
Oh,
tapped
here it is. No, I've got 19.
properties.
16, 19, which is the owner. 16, I'm sorry, here it is.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah,
So we got that.
they own a bunch.
Okay, 16, 49.
We should do the bigger map.
Thank you.
In New Ipswich, which is your map one that you're referencing for Virgil. Map 1, lot 15. This looks to be Greenville.
I think that's the Greenville, yeah. And that one lot 15 would be right here.
This is New Ipswich, right?
Yep.
Us, this
Yeah.
Greenville. This is Greenville, okay,
Yeah.
yep.
And I think 15-1 is also belongs to Edwards, and that's why 15 isn't a butter. 15 in Greenville isn't a butter because the Edwards also own this, and I think it's one deed. The way it's
Okay.
written, they have one deed
Okay.
and it straddles the town
So
line.
this is Greenville though.
Yeah, yep. In reference to map 1 would be a Greenville property.
That's the, yes,
That one?
yep, yep. Lot 73. here. Where is this cluster? Is it behind
That is right here.
18?
It's behind 18, that's correct. I actually think 18 may be part of, I'm not sure if it's related, but it's right behind that lot 18, yeah. So I think we've said that those three
So those
lots,
wouldn't be abutters?
these three are. 16, 16, 3, and 16, 4, up through to be abutters.
16:8. Although he's not a
You,
I don't think
He's a
16
cross.
is.
But
Nevertheless, I think they're all still.
But those two are all part
owned
of-
by Taft.
oh,
Put on there. We're missing, is that one on the
that's the
15
owner. That's the lot that we're looking
Oh,
at now.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, alright.
So 15 is on it, and 17 is on each of these two here. This
Okay.
15. And on the switch side, it looks like this is the law. We've got 6. My only question on this one, Ed, and it could be our tax map. Is this a lot? That's pie piece right there?
I think that is part of lot 40, that's what I understand.
Okay.
I think Kenny Road,
You're right, I think that's something to do with the tax map.
Okay.
Kenny Road is wrong.
Alright.
It's not a
Or maybe that's what, maybe that's just Kenny Road that they drew in.
Yeah.
Although it. But
Yeah.
as long as it's based on what we see here, we should be okay.
What I can say is that lot 15 abuts anyway, and they're getting notified. So regardless of which parcel that little sliver belongs to.
As long as it belongs to one of these two and it's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
separate one,
True.
which is fine.
That's not a separate lot. Well, one is it?
So that's just 124 is how I took it. And whatever this line here is supposed to be represented.
Okay.
Someday I'll bring you a nice square lot with.
Oh, I think I've seen
That would
one
be nice.
once. Alright,
I think
awesome.
of 3 of others.
So,
It's a nice farmable lot.
and let's just
Oh,
check.
for what it's worth, I came out to the same number of abutters as
Okay.
I double checked it.
Section 6.
Not that I doubt you work in.
Was there any issue with the fees, is that amount good?
That amount is good, but I don't deposit it until they accept it,
Okay.
so it's easier that way.
Yeah, that seems right. Just refers back
I
to.
noticed on here, we've got a West Townsend, Mass, so the owner does not live on site.
The owner doesn't live on site,
Okay.
his son does live in the trailer on the property.
Okay.
Looks good.
Make a motion to accept the application for Joseph and Winifred Edwards as submitted based on payment of fees.
Go a second.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Put you on for January 5th. I had to look it up, it's the 5th, but.
I'll take your word for it.
Yep.
Okay.
January 5th at 7:05. 7:05 work?
That works for us.
Did you say the 6th?
The 5th, yeah.
5th or 6th?
5. I think that's
Thank
the
you.
first Thursday.
At what time?
7:05. 7:05.
Perfect.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Ed.
Thank you.
See you then. This one we actually.
Take these maps back, keep them in the original.
This other one was actually a hearing. So they're kind of
That'll
default.
go,
to
yeah,
that.
that'll
But the other
one street,
application is the administrative one.
and that's the application.
Application.
Better do Nancy's next.
What's that? Nancy's?
Is that what you do?
Yeah. The next application we have is for a application for an appeal from an administrative decision by, actually this, it's by Richard Craig and Sharon Smith, but I believe Nancy, you were,
I'm sorry, yes, counsel.
and this was in regards to the driveway permit that was originally issued by the town DPW, and then you had appealed to the Board of Selectmen, who upheld it, and you're here to appeal their decision.
Yes.
Okay. Making sure that sounds accurate.
I had a question on that. The question I had on this application is, under the property location, Mill Street is noted.
So that's on the tax card for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That's taken directly from their tax card.
It's not this one.
Is also on River Road?
Right, is it River Road or is it Mill Street?
Their address is on River Road, but the location on the tax card says Mill Street.
They're on both.
There's a piece of land,
Where's Mill Street?
that's,
Down where,
it's an
Down
old
that
word,
area?
word.
Do you want me to
Quark
print,
Mills.
print the 2 cards?
Oh,
And I'm just wondering why Mill Street? They own 2 properties or?
They do have 2 parcels, but when it asked for location, we have an entry for an address, which I have there, 124 River Road. And the location was directly taken verbatim from the tax card, which says Mill Street. I have no reference for why the tax card says Mill Street. I just took the information.
So the tax card for 124 River Road is the one that
Yes.
says Mill Street?
Yes.
I just make a request that they maybe get that cleaned up.
I know a little bit about it. There was a road that went in front of the Smith's house that went down into the mill, and it's always been Mill Street. It's been grown over, and, but there was an actual road.
I've seen that on the tax map, but it's not called Mill Street.
Yes.
They had another name for it.
Mill Road.
No, I won't bother.
I've always known
you
it
wanted
as
to.
mill.
Yeah. I saw that one this afternoon, saying where's that road? Thank you for the clarification.
so I know there's some past history on this, obviously it's gone through the Board of Selectmen. We were forwarded information from their meeting minutes and from the results of what you had talked about and what the answers were. The town's attorney had looked at it, and gave input. Did you have anything new to provide for that for information, as far as on top of what had already been submitted to the Board of Selectmen?
I think an additional point for for you all to consider would be that the application itself for the driveway permit indicated that it was for residential purposes, and I think, as you all are well aware, we're here for a commercial business operation.
Do you wanna present your application? That way there we can just go through it, but one of my things that I wanna speak about here before you start is you are the legal representative for the people that are bringing this forth. So I would ask that any comments are through you, because last meeting you were their legal representative and then everybody else was speaking again, which makes these meetings go on for quite a long time. So we're asking, since you're the legal representative, that you address any concerns of your clients.
For this particular appeal only?
Yes.
Right now, we're addressing that one.
Okay.
There.
I mean, I think for purposes of fairness, we planned for all of the abutters and interested parties that happen to be my clients for tonight's application for variance to speak on their own behalf. They all have unique and interesting things to share with you all, and I don't think it would be appropriate for me as the counsel to state those things.
Well,
But that would be for the application itself.
at the that will be when we start to address that. I'll probably repeat this, but for now, we're addressing the application that you have before us for the appeal of the administrative decision. Okay?
Yep.
Good.
If you wanna present?
Sure. So the two legal issues that are presented in your attached letter that you received with a copy of the application have to do with the New Ipswich driveway regulations and the New Hampshire State Scenic Road regulations. So driveway regulations, section 5B, require that an application for a driveway permit must be accompanied either by evidence that the driveway will not impact a wetland or wetland buffer, or by a copy of a decision letter from the zoning board of adjustment granting a variance to New Ipswich Wetlands Ordinance. Evidence may consist of a reference to a subdivision plan or site plan showing the location of any wetlands on the site, or a determination from the Town Conservation Commission. None of those elements have been satisfied in this case. A driveway permit, furthermore, under section 7B, cannot be issued for an illegal purpose. In this case, the illegal purpose being the commercial business that has not received approval from the town. And so in the application stated that it was for a residential purpose. And for the past 3 hearings that we've been before you, we've been talking about a commercial operation at the address. New Hampshire Scenic Road Regulations, these are New Hampshire state law. RSA 231-158-4 states that designation of a road as a scenic road shall not affect the rights of any landowner with respect to work on his own property, except to the extent that trees have been acquired by the municipality as shade or ornamental trees pursuant to RSA 231-139-156, which isn't relevant, and except that RSA 472:6 limits the removal or alteration of boundary markers, including stone walls, and that is what we are talking about here. So RSA 472:6, entitled Removing or Altering Boundary Markers, applies to the alteration of the stone wall in Ms. Elwell's property, not only because it's a stone wall, but also because it is a boundary marker that is adjacent to Courier Road, which is designated as a scenic road. 472:6 provides that removal of a stone wall or a boundary marker is a misdemeanor. So relief that we are seeking is rescission of the driveway permits, requirement for the property owner to replace the the stone wall that was taken down, a fine for violation of New Hampshire RSA 472:6, and a stop work order for the driveway and the attached parking lot. I believe you have butter information there, which is a total of 16, including the subject property, and this LL's agent was served separately.
Yeah, it's on the back here. I actually checked them earlier.
It's somewhere after the,
I would say it's about halfway. That's before these. Yep. That's it.
and these are all set?
Yep.
Can I make a motion to accept the application for an appeal of an administrative decision based on payment of fees?
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
That'll be for the one that's 7:05, this should probably be quarter of eight, 7:45. Did you get that 7:45 on January 5th for that, well, through that hearing?
I did not
Okay.
hear that, no.
January 5th at 7:45 PM.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alright, next up is the main event of the night. We already, that's gonna take a little time, they're gonna have to go at the end. The continuation of Jane Elwell for Silver Scones LLC, looking for a variance to run a, we called it a limited food service,
Occasional food service.
occasional,
Yeah, so it's called.
occasional food service, thank you. I wrote that down somewhere.
Maybe just for the record, we received some more letters, and there
those need to be
It'll be in the
vetted.
book for
Yeah.
the zoning board to review. We got this more tonight,
Oh, okay.
so I just wanna put it in record.
Cool.
In addition to those that we received
Yeah,
previously.
this just came in tonight.
The butter dropped them off.
Okay,
I believe where we left off in October was some of, there was, abutters were,
do you have a copy of the, people that signed in?
Joe.
For tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah. This was for Jane, and this was for,
Ah.
I'm gonna leave that there.
Okay, we do again have the sign-in list, and I would make comment that, again, as a board, if we have legal representative for the listed abutters and non-abutters, that any comments for them are through the representative. You guys agree, or? Cause we're a quasi judicial board, and as in a, judicial hearing, an appellant has legal representation, and that is the person that would present all of the information, and I think if we go and you've presented all of the concerns of your clients, then to have the clients come up and reiterate it again, is just our time, not being used wisely. And I would be more than open if you want to even take some time to meet with them and continue on, and we can have those abutters or concerned parties that are not being represented by you voice any concerns they have, either way.
So if it is required that I give the statements, I will do that. However, I think that these individuals have unique perspectives, all of them individually, that are very different from what I've already presented. Many of my remarks had to do with the legal nature of the application and the 5 elements that need to be met in order to satisfy the application for variance. My clients are here to speak about their own individual impacts to themselves, to their property, and the individual invasion of privacy that's happened. I'm not an appropriate party to speak about that, nor have I spoken about that in previous hearings.
What
What's
about
your-
the letters we've received? Is that information the letters we've received, or?
Letters
Right.
that we received, I know some of them had written on them that they wanted the letters read at this hearing to the public, which we can do. At least the ones that I saw were not being represented by Mrs. Clark. I'm only concerned with, Mrs. Clark has her clients and that we receive documentation to say she's representing them, then I think that's how that should be going, so that we can move this hearing along. Otherwise, I think we'll be
cumbersome.
here again and we end up continuing a hearing because of the time that it could take, unless we try and limit it to a certain amount of time.
Could I be recognized, please?
Yes, sir.
I'm not an abutter. I'm a taxpayer who lives in this town, used to be on the zoning board. And so I'm not party to Mrs. Clark's group of clients. But when I was on the zoning board, we took the testimony of abutters And then we took the testimony of other interested parties. And this is the second meeting that I've attended. And the first one I attended was overwhelmingly occupied by the applicant's position, long into the night. So I drove up from Boston today, and I intend to speak.
Mr. Hanselman, as my comment was said, it's that we're trying to have those that are the clients of Mrs. Clark that are being represented.
Many have spoken, David.
Let me,
Yeah?
for those clients, because the documentation is she is their representative at these hearings, that those communications be channeled through her. And as I had offered was if she needed more time this evening to collect, meet with them to get those thoughts put down,
Okay.
we could allow those people that are not her clients, that are abutters or townsfolk, to continue the hearing.
I guess my feeling is, David, that so much time has been spent on this. Why rush it now? People are outside waiting for 20 minutes in the cold. We're in here, we were scheduled to begin the thing. It's now 10 minutes to late. I think you should let the people speak. Let it take the time it needs to be resolved. It's a big issue.
You wanna go? I'm just trying to.
Yeah, we need to try to be efficient here.
jump backwards, you know.
You, sir,
Just a very quick comment. This is late in the process to impose
Can
this
I
kind of
interrupt?
a,
Can you, just for the record, could you say your name?
certainly,
Thank you.
Christopher O'Leary.
Thank you, Christopher.
It's late in the process to impose this kind of a requirement. As we have been preparing our comments, we've had an approach that our personal comments would come from us in person, and the legal arguments would come from Attorney Clark. And I feel a little bit disenfranchised with this. I understand the concern you're expressing, sir, and I don't disagree with it. But I think that we need to express that concern and establish that process at the outset, so as to allow the preparation to follow the process that you're suggesting.
And I can respect that, but it wasn't until after the last hearing that my mindset was, this is gonna take forever. If we listen to every single abutter applicant that is part of their client list, and if we could limit it somehow, because I think in the best interest of the hearing is we want to keep it moving along. If we keep hearing the same pros or cons, then it's really not progressing. That's all I'm trying to do.
Nancy, we only have 4, but
7. I have 7.
Sure.
I have 7 clients that have not had a chance to speak. That's all. 7.
David, if I might, please, that it's true that this might extend, you know, this meeting a little bit longer if everybody has their say, but the impact to Bank Village is going to be forever. That's much more concerning.
Thank you, Marilyn.
How about, is everybody good with a 3-minute time limit? We can run people through 3 minutes just for the sake of, you have your time, but we do have to be able to hear everybody and continue on to the next person behind you. So, agreeable?
Are we limiting everyone to 3 minutes, not just my clients?
I'm trying to consolidate your client list. I don't be, excuse me? Because if you can speak on their behalf as their legal representative, if they have anything in addition, is 3 minutes long enough to?
I am agreeable to the 3 minutes, but what I'm asking you is that if we are going to limit my clients to 3 minutes, many of which who are abutters, all of the interested parties should also be limited to 3 minutes. If we're trying to limit the amount of time, and in terms of efficiency for this hearing, I'm agreeing to the 3 minutes if it is a universal rule.
I would not be in agreement for somebody that is an abutter that is not your client to
Okay.
limit them to 3 minutes.
Okay,
You know, they should have more time.
a non-represented abutter can have more
Correct.
time if we are willing to impose the 3 minute limit on interested parties.
That's not fair.
That's not fair.
No, that's not fair.
No. That would be somebody that doesn't abut to limit them to 3 minutes.
So I was kinda thinking maybe like,
See that or just as the chair and somebody to the center point. Just move it along.
start the repetitive motion.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, we're not gonna do the 3 minutes, we're gonna let everyone say their piece. I am gonna monitor, and if we start getting repeat information, I'm gonna ask the person to stop and be complete and let the next person start.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I had in the, my notes from the October meeting, I believe, Chris, you were the last one to speak.
I was the last one.
Stan was.
Stan
Four
was.
of us read.
Okay, hang on. Check, she spoke. Chris Allen spoke.
Basically just what you bring on River Road.
That he's in a butter.
Use it butter.
Yeah. Applicant, that's the applicant.
Oh, okay. Benti Hoyska, do you wanna take the floor and
Sure.
say your piece?
Okay. I've given some thought to Jane L. Wells or Silver Scone's business model, and get down to basics. What she's doing is getting people to spend good money to drink hot brown water. Now, how does she do that? Well, she elevates the experience so that what she's really hosting is a very nice tea party. And when I think of tea party, several words and images come to mind. Tasty treats, lovely setting, enjoyable social occasion. In other words, she serves very high quality tea, prepares all her own food. The house is very nicely decorated, nice tablecloths. The tea is poured to nice china cups, china plates. The rooms are nicely decorated. Sometimes there's a seasonal theme. Also on the social side, the guests that show up, usually they can come together as friends, family, and sometimes people meet new people. So you can almost think of this tea party as adding to the social capital of the town. Now, that's what people think of mostly as the tea party experience, in this elevation process, she's elevating this tea drinking experience. But I left out the most important part in the sense of what's relevant for this zoning hearing. It's the property itself. It's meaning the house as well as the yard. The house, in my opinion, is the nicest house in Bank Village. It's the most architecturally interesting. and it's the most historically significant house in Bank Village. And Bank Village is called Bank Village for a reason. There used to be a bank there, and the bank manager actually lived in Jane's house. You could think, in other words, the house is sort of a showcase for the village, and it would be nice if it stayed that way. Now, why would it stay that way? Well, you'd have to have a person interested in maintaining the property, and the person would also need to have the financial resources to maintain it. So granting the variance would accomplish this in two ways. First of all, in order to attract guests, the house must look nice, both inside and outside. So being able to host tea parties and attracting guests would require that the house be properly maintained, well maintained, and as well as the landscaping. And that's been happening over time anyway, but you see more flowers, more flowering shrubs, more ornamental shrubs. There's a new roof on the house has been painted, etc. So this process of maintaining the showcase property has been ongoing, and it would be nice if it continued. And as I said, you'd have to have a person interested in doing so, and with the resources to do so. And hosting tea parties would do both, or being able to host tea parties would do both, because the person would have an incentive to maintain the property as well as the money. And I've already said that. So why is this relevant? Well, as everybody knows, the zoning board has this 5-part or 5-element test. I think it's RSA 674-33-1B or whatever. And one of the items on that list is that the property or this activity not diminish the value of surrounding properties. Well, it was argued in I think the first session of this hearing that some commercial activity in the village would actually diminish property value. But I think it's more reasonable to argue that maintaining this showcase property, and perhaps even improving it a little bit here and there, would support real estate values in the village. And I could even use the word elevate real estate values in the village. So I think that element of the test, of this 5-element test, would be satisfied if by granting the variance.
It is a beautiful house. I agree. All right.
She's not a butter.
Who is?
Is it Callahan or Calabran?
Caltabiano?
Ah, that's probably what it is. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading it.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we get your name?
Caltabiano.
What's your first name?
Greg.
Greg?
Yes.
Thank you. Ah, it's a G. I told you.
Okay?
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'm opposing the granting of the variance. My property abuts the applicants on my western property. I feel that granting the variance will irreversibly alter the character of Bank Village. When I moved to Bank Village several years ago, there was an air of conviviality and neighborliness that I think has changed in the process of granting this variance began. There's now a bellicose and menacing atmosphere among many of the residents is unmistakable. There's been numerous reports of instances of drive-bys by supporters of the applicant preaching obscene language and gestures. Now, the applicant claims that she'll be hosting small groups for English-style tea, yet she advertised on the internet a venue that can accommodate 50 or more people at a time throughout the day. And where the variance to be granted with restrictions, there's no way of confirming that the restrictions are being followed. The applicant seems to be seems to have proven that she has a tenuous relationship with the truth and no respect for the law. Were the variance to be granted, there's no way of predicting or controlling what kind of business might be run out of the residence if and when the current owner sells a property. I believe that Bank Village has not had a business in it for nearly 50 years, and in the interest of preserving its strictly residential nature, it doesn't need one now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anne Marie Fournier.
Hi, my name is Anne Marie Fournier. I live at 111 River Road, right next door to Miss Elwell. My husband and I restored our home, which no one lived in for 30 years. So we appreciate the hard work and the permitting process that goes into renovating a historic home. However, what we are speaking about tonight is not a residential upgrade. Silver Scones Tea Party is currently listed online as an event venue, as well as a destination venue under multiple restaurant review sites. I am 100% against rezoning this property because the events and private parties would be allowed to happen every weekend. Living next door to such an event venue would completely disrupt the nature of village life. Would you like to live next to an event venue? After working a long week of commuting back and forth to work, I love to sit outside and enjoy the tranquility of my backyard. But with a parking lot on Courier Road becoming an issue, and now congregating and driving in and out of a makeshift parking lot, I worry about the safety of my dogs with the increase of traffic. All of this can be viewed and heard from the inside of my home as well, and would only continue to wreak havoc within our harmonious neighborhood if allowed to continue. New Ipswich is known for its quaint, quiet, historic villages, and this is why we moved here. Allowing an event venue into residential historic village changes the dynamic of the whole village, as well as sets a dangerous precedent for the other two villages here in town. Please save Bank Village and do not let this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Fournier.
How you doing?
I don't know if you have separate something prepared or.
Yeah, I mean, she pretty much laid out our concerns. I just had a couple other things.
If you could just stick to the, if anything different, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
try
you.
anyway. Yeah, I mean, our concern is that the place will grow. It's not necessarily Silver Scones Teas that we're concerned with. It's the Millbrook House Event Center. And, you know, the growth of the business. Initially, we didn't have a problem with what she was doing. It was quiet, 5 to 10 people at a time. But Mother's Day kind of changed everything. There was 126 people Mother's Day weekend that showed up. It was a little bit out of control, I guess. And the concern is that that'll just keep on growing. The other concern is, I mean, we keep talking about, again, Silver Scones Tea House, like it's, some sort of cute thing. But in reality, the state of New Hampshire would look at it as a restaurant. They don't, there's no use group for a tea house. It's considered a restaurant, place for food and drink, cafeteria, function halls, things like that. So that's what you would be approving, would be a restaurant. Complete with an 18-space parking lot directly across the street from my house. That parking lot, as they're exiting, would also, the cars would aim directly at my house, so I'd have headlights flashing at the house. The little layout that Mr. Fasanella had put together for the driveway. So those would be my concerns as well. Yeah, so that's pretty
Okay,
much all I have.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is that this one?
Attorney.
Oh, okay. Derek.
Oh,
Okay, I don't know. Mr. O'Leary, you're not in a butter, are you?
Neighbor, no, yeah,
Okay.
neighbor butter.
Richard Smith.
Yes, I'm Richard Smith, I live on 124 River Road along with my wife Sharon. The parking lot was already addressed, so I'm not gonna hit on that. I'm concerned about a number of things, and I try to boil them down to numbers. Customer throughput, on a micro level, 100 persons a day, and that 100 person came from the applicant, and it was in the October meeting. The daily rate is huge for a home occupancy business and would alter the residential character of Bank Village. 100 daily events equates to 400 guests per month, or over the course of the year, 4,800 guests. To offer a comparison, the annual figure matches the combined populations of Greenville, Mason, and Temple. Another fact, the request diminishes the value of the surrounding properties. And I looked at it from an affluent discharge. I know this might sound crazy, but it's a small village. Affluent discharge was addressed in our October meeting, and it was discussed at 12 gallons per person. On a macro level, one day equates to 1,200 gallons. A monthly figure comes out to 4,800 gallons, and a year equates to 57,600 gallons. And I think the board was very much on the spot when they asked for a backup plan for the septic system, because if you have hydraulic overloading at that location, well, it leaches into the village groundwater and eventually makes its way into the Sohegan and Merrimack rivers.
Thank you. Just for the record, you were referencing 100 people. I don't know where that number came
Yeah,
from.
50, oh,
But at our our September 1st hearing with them, and we'll ask the applicant to correct me if my notes are incorrect, that their application was for typically 20 to 40 people with a maximum of 50.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
twice a day.
No, once a day.
once a day.
That's per day.
Per day.
Per day.
50 maximum per day.
Yeah, but she did say that she could,
But she does
she
two
could do,
seatings.
She does.
I can break the.
no, she was saying it, she had told the board that that would be per day. She could do one on a Saturday and one on a Sunday. Is that correct?
4 days in every 30, 4 days every 30, so it's 4 times a
Right.
month on average, 50 people per day. If
Correct.
I wanted to do 2 seatings of 25 each seating,
Mhm.
it still comes out to 50 per
50
day.
people. Okay.
No,
Okay, just-
but that's what we agreed on.
I just want,
Okay.
because
I know.
I don't like it when numbers are being put out, then
Right,
that
they're
becomes
not true.
gospel, and it wasn't with my recollection of what I had in my notes, so I wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
So I'm having a hard time reading this one.
Sharon.
Sharon? Sharon
I'm
Smith?
gonna keep my seat if you don't mind.
Sure.
First thing I wanna make perfectly clear this evening is my opposition to this proposed variance is not fueled by any animus towards anyone, okay? Okay. It stems rather from a desire to maintain and preserve the integrity of Village District 1. That's all this is about. Over the course of my 25-plus year Air Force career, I lived in my fair share of cities, towns, villages, and even countries. So when it came time to retire, my husband and I carefully weighed several factors before choosing New Ipswich, specifically Bank Village, for our retirement home. What attracted us to the village? was its long-standing commitment to conservation, the preservation of its rich history, and its designation as a residential community. Perhaps most notably missing from our list was a desire to live within eyesight of what we're now calling a food services establishment. That's all this is about, okay? Several people have already touched on a lot of the issues and the points for those 5 criteria, and all 5 need to be met. All 5.
Thank you.
Okay? The proposed variance will have an adverse effect and an impact on the environmental and physical conditions within the district. An event venue of this scope and size will scar the neighborhood for forever. Something totally out of character with the land that's in conservation now. You laugh all you want, Miss Elwell, you go right ahead.
Let's
It's
keep
worth noting on December 20th of 21, the Monadnock Ledger reported the New Ipswich Conservation Commission was adding signage to 5 roads designated by petition as scenic. And one of those 5 is Courier Road from Route 123 to 124. Which the commission chair, Mr. Bob Boynton, who I wish was here this evening, pointed out is located in the historic Bank Village. Mr. Boynton went on to say that the petitioners want to maintain the status quo. We're not looking for change. He added it was like a freeze frame in time, and you can check the paper for that. I'm sure we can get some help. Okay? Last but certainly not, or I should go on to say, as it is in the public interest to hold the spirit of the ordinance to promote public health, safety, and general welfare of our community, the proposed variance will and already has had the opposite effect. Frankly speaking, as previously noted, the atmosphere in Bank Village has changed, and not for its better or any of the residents' betterment either. Okay? So the number of guests, now we're hearing only it's 1 seating. I'll check my paperwork and I'll watch the meeting again, but it can be 2 on any given day of the weekend, not 1. So this just keeps getting more fluid by the minute. Okay? And the volume of traffic will fundamentally change everyone's quality of life in the neighborhood. Okay? So during deliberation, I ask each of you to think long and thoroughly through your decisions, looking at all possible ramifications and scenarios, okay? And I believe 2 points at this point are worth repeating, and they were made by the former chairperson of this board during our first session. She went on to say, a minimal home occupation is conducted solely by the homeowner or tenant.
We've already covered that part.
I just want to repeat it, okay, because those are important points to remember. And once you invite the public in, it's not a home occupation,
Understood.
okay? As well as the variance goes with the property.
That's
So we may
correct.
have a cute little tea party today, but we may not know what we're gonna get tomorrow. So I ask you to please take that into consideration. And with that, I'll yield my time back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Meath, your last comment, and somebody else had raised a comment also, and I don't recall who it was, but when a variance or a special exception is approved,
Yes,
it is specific to the applicant's submission. So the concerns of a business changing, growing, whatever, once it gets outside those boundaries, it does require another submission to the ZBA.
may I? This variance is asking to have outside activity
not solely conducted inside the home.
We understand that.
And Mr. Lage, you pointed that out
Right,
very well.
right.
Thank you very much.
We understand
Okay.
that.
As long
All
as
I'm
you
trying to
can
s-
sing, sir, very well. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
So that runs us through our butters.
Okay, now go through,
Start back at the top with
yeah,
first name on the
okay,
list.
yeah. Nothing, T.
Judy Holmes.
Hi,
Would you like to say something?
I would like to say something in support of tea parties. For one thing, Silver Scone's tea parties have been operating for over 3 years. The complaints didn't start until she divorced her husband and pushed him out of her life. Whether that has anything to do with it or not. The first complaint that the neighbors had was they didn't like seeing cars parked out in front of her house on the side of the road, which is perfectly legal. I was very embarrassed for Jane at one of her tea parties. She had a beautiful Alice in Wonderland tea party. And I happened to be there early. And other guests came and parked in front of her house. And Louise Del Papa came marching up the road with a clipboard in her hand and started yelling at the guests, saying, "You can't park there, you can't park there." It was perfectly legal for them to park there. I don't know if she thinks she's a parking police or something. But anyway, I was embarrassed for her to have her guests treated that way. That was terrible. How embarrassing for her to have her guests treated like that. Also, she has an open area on her property, which she didn't clear. It has been an open area for a long time. And the driveway has been there for a long time, for decades. So this open area, when her husband was there, he had 2 trailers parked up there and 3 vehicles. And he also used that open area to cut and split his wood. When he left, he took the trailers and the vehicles out of there, but he left a terrible mess of debris. There was piles of rotten wood and, all kinds of stuff. So Jane cleared that all up. She cleaned that property all up and made it nice and neat. She said, "There, now my guests can park here. On my property, they'll be off the road, out of sight." That didn't satisfy the neighbors. Oh no. They said she created an illegal parking lot and an illegal driveway. So there's no satisfying them. No matter what she does, they come up with something else. She moved 2 rocks on her own land, and they made an issue of that. I'm surprised that issue was even entertained. If so, they should get me, because I've moved a lot of rocks on my property in the time I've been here. She didn't take them off of a wall or anything. They were on her property, and she moved them to make the entryway safer. She's done everything that the zoning board has asked her to do. She's complied with all their requests, but the neighbors always find something else to complain about. They're grasping at straws right now. There's no significant increase in traffic, no more than if any of them had a cookout or a party at their house. Mr. Smead complained about speeders at the last meeting. He said ever since he's moved there have been speeders on River Road. I agree, especially since they repaved a good section of River Road. There has been a lot of speeders. I don't think hardly anybody obeys the speed limit there. But don't blame it onto her tea party guests, because her guests that are coming to the tea party are slowing down as they're approaching her house, and they're stopping at her house, because that's their destination. They're not speeding on by. And if Mr. Smead has traffic complaints, the zoning board and the board of selectmen is not the place. He should take it to the police department and ask them to patrol our area more, because you never see a police car down there. They don't hardly ever come down there. Jane had a cookout at her house on July 10th. Her family from Utah was here visiting, and it was my husband's birthday the day before, July 9th. So it was a combination cookout and birthday party. The neighbors reported her as having an illegal tea party and serving alcohol. About a week later, Jane gets a letter from the town attorney telling her she better not do it again. Can you imagine having a cookout at your house and getting a letter from the town attorney telling you not to do it again? I wonder what the taxpayers of New Ipswich would think about that, if they knew their tax dollars were being paid to a town attorney to write a letter to somebody for having a cookout. That's a little ridiculous. And they say that business is gonna hurt Bank Village. There's been several businesses in Bank Village over the years. As they said, the first one was a bank, and then there was a mill right across the road from Jane, a cotton mill. But in more recent years, we've lived in Bank Village area for over 30 years. And when we moved there, Bill Courier was still living. And he lived on the opposite corner from Jane. And he had a small metal building in his backyard that was used for metal fabrication, a little machine shop. And in his home, he operated a ski shop. Because Bill's occupation was fixing and repairing and maintaining ski lifts in this whole area. So it was an appropriate business for him to have in his house, a ski shop. Okay, in Nancy Clark's house at one time, there was an antique shop. In Smead's house, there was an art gallery. None of these businesses hurt Bank Village at all. And certainly a tea party in the afternoon 4 times a month is not gonna hurt the village. People come there to enjoy the quiet, the peace, and enjoy the surroundings.
Understood. Are you able to summarize what you have?
What?
Are you able to summarize the rest of what you have in the next
Yeah, it's
little
just,
bit here?
yep. Let's see. No significant increase in traffic. There's no, there's been businesses in Bank Village for quite a while. I think that, that's about it. It's just that, they're just trying, it's more of a personal vendetta against Jane than it is, about tea parties, because tea parties aren't gonna hurt Bank Village. If anything, it's gonna be an asset.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Ray Holmes? Is there a Ray Holmes? Oh.
I'm in support of the business.
We get that, okay. Thank you.
I've also lived here for 30 years.
Cheryl Glavy.
I guess
I'm in support of the business.
Okay. Liz Freeman.
My name is Liz Freeman. I live at 410 Ashby Road, and I own the property on Waterloom Pond at the corner of Old Country Road and River Road. So I'm in a butter to Bank Village, and this application has the potential to impact my quiet enjoyment of that piece of property. Before I go further, could I get clarification? I'm sorry, I meant to ask, who are the voting members on the board tonight?
3 of us.
Okay, so I've lived in town for 43 years and have been serving on the planning board for the past 25 years or so. I want to be clear that I'm not representing or speaking for the planning board tonight. I am speaking as a private citizen, but as one who is quite familiar with how zoning works in New Ipswich. I understand that Jane's tea parties are probably very lovely events. I know Jane to be an excellent hostess and a superb cook. But that's not what the issue is about tonight. My concern with this application is that if you grant this variance, you will be setting a precedent that fundamentally changes the zoning ordinance. A variance not only sets a precedent that runs with a particular property, it also establishes a precedent for any other property with similar characteristics. This is why one of the requirements for a variance is that the property has unique characteristics. And I understand that even if it sets a precedent, an applicant would have to come in to the board for approval. But the question is, if a precedent has been set and it's a similar kind of activity, then the board would probably have to approve it, in all fairness. So, just to clarify the issue, I'd like to share an example that one member of this board is familiar with. In this case, the property owner was requesting relief from the side setback requirements in the zoning ordinance. The property owner wanted to build a garage on a property that was 1/3 of an acre in size and was cut into 3 different sections by 2 roads. One section was a traffic island, and a second section contained the house and the septic, leaving the only location for the garage on the 60 by 60 foot 3rd section. In order to fit the garage on the 3rd section, the resident needed relief from the side setbacks required in the zoning ordinance. In addition, a garage is a customary use on a residential property. A variance was granted for the property, and this set a precedent. If another property owner who owns 1/3 of an acre cut into 3 pieces by 2 roads and comes before this ZBA for a variance from the side setbacks, the ZBA would have to grant it because a precedent has been set. You can't allow it for one and not for the other if the circumstances are similar. However, this precedent, it establishes only a tiny, tiny, tiny change to the zoning ordinance, but it effectively changes the zoning ordinance. But it's so small because it's very unlikely that there's any other property with similar characteristics. The problem with this application is that there is nothing unique about the property at 99 River Road that qualifies it for a variance. It is unique in that it has a large amount of conservation land on it. But to say that you need to be able to have a business on the property in order to pay the taxes on that land is a bit of a stretch. I assume the applicant was aware of the restrictions when she bought the property. If this variance for 99 River Road is granted, then a variance for a tea party and event venue would have to be granted to any property in Bank Village or Smithville that was similar to 99 River Road, as long as the impact was not greater than the contemplated impact of the Silver Scone. Fair is fair. But I'm familiar with the properties in Bank Village. I've been a guest in all but one of the residences in the village, including 99 River Road. They are all antique homes, and many have large attached or detached barns on lovely properties. All the properties in Bank Village are similar to the property at 99 River Road, with the exception of the conservation land. Most of them could accommodate parking or make arrangements with friendly neighbors for parking that could be appropriately and attractively screened from public view. If you grant this variance, you have added an additional use to the list of special exceptions for Village District 1. Any property owner in Bank Village, or Smithville for that matter, could apply for a special exception for a tea party and event menu because their properties are similar to the property at 99 River Road. This board would be required to approve the special exception if the applicant could meet the same criteria you were to establish relative to the impact of Silver Scone. That would not be difficult. More importantly, there are additional uses that could meet the same criteria you might establish for the Silver Scone. Some examples I can think of. And all of these could be held within the premises and would create no more traffic than the Silver Scone generates. One house has a ballroom on the second floor. If they came in and asked for variance to be allowed to have contra dances every Saturday night, would this board have to grant that? Would that generate any more impact than the Silver Scone generates? Several houses could be great locations for holding antique auctions. In fact, one of the properties does have a special exception for an antique shop. So what if they came in and asked for a variance for, to hold auctions on Saturday mornings? Small auctions, but you know, with no more than 50 people. Would you have to grant them that? Is not fair is fair. What about, there are several artists and craftspeople living in the village. What if they want to give classes in their particular specialty? Would you have to grant them that permission? No more than 50 people a day, 4 days a month? So, let's see. What if a property owner wants to rent space to an organization to use as a clubhouse? And they come to you. No more than
Can we
50
speed
people.
this up? I got a Patriots game I wanna watch, so let's go, folks.
Please.
Go watch it.
Then go watch it.
Go watch it.
Just
Ain't
Just
about
stop
you.
whining.
Hey,
There's
hey.
other business in this town.
Sounds like you're the one that's whining.
No.
Folks, it's all gotta come through us. If it's not coming through the board, it's all invalid.
You address it then.
Sir,
Go ahead.
do you have something you would like to say?
Yes.
Then let's wait your turn.
As soon as she's
You
done,
wait your
you
turn.
have your turn.
Okay, so I say property owner might like to rent space.
Liz, can you give us some other things other than what ifs? We got the what ifs already.
Okay,
Let's.
so you got the what ifs.
Yes, we
Okay.
do.
Okay. It might be considered unlikely that any of these scenarios would come to pass, or any similar ones. But if there's one thing I've learned in 25 years on the planning board, is when you think you've seen it all, you haven't. If a property owner in Bank Village were to apply for a variance for use of any of the ones I've described, it would most likely have to be granted if it had no greater impact than the Silver Scone. It wouldn't take many of these variances to completely change the character of Bank Village. This board may believe it can set criteria that are so narrow, only the current applicant could meet them. It is hard to believe other properties in the village couldn't meet them as well. In addition, the more narrowly you might define specific criteria for a use, the more difficult it would be to enforce. How would you know if those criteria were being met? There is simply ample evidence of the difficulty this town has in enforcing ordinances and regulations. The town simply doesn't have the resources to do it. If this board grants the requested variance for 99 River Road, it will set a dangerous precedent for all the other properties in Village District 1, because there is nothing unique about the property at 99 River Road that qualifies it for a variance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. You, sir, gentlemen, what's your name?
My name is Robert Mason.
Would you mind coming and signing in for us so we can have you on record, sir?
I did sign it.
Is there another? Oh, you're on here, Robert
Yeah.
Mason.
Maybe signed the wrong one.
I'll come
Yeah,
down.
right here, right here.
Oh, okay, there it is. Yep, that's
227.
Aspernham
Yeah.
Road.
Yeah, that's me.
Awesome.
All right, folks. First of all, I changed.
Excuse me.
You have
You
to
address the board.
Oh, can I sit?
Sure, sure. Have a seat.
Let me take a load off my legs here. All right. First of all, I want to just say, ladies and gentlemen of this town.
Address the board.
You have to address us.
You don't speak
It's all
to the
coming through
audience.
us.
Okay.
What?
to the board of selectmen here. We're looking
Zoning
at,
board.
This is the zoning board.
oh, zoning, okay, whatever. I'm just saying, this woman's only just doing a tea party. What's the big issue about the tea party? It's no big issue. It's a business, she brought in people, my wife and daughter attended it, family friend went with them, they loved it. Jane's got a gorgeous house. The Bank Village, I'm not gonna lie, folks, it's a beautiful part of the town. You guys should be proud of that. I'll tell you what, I would love to have those beautiful houses on my lot on 227 Ashburn
Sir,
Road.
address the board.
Excuse me, sir.
This is gonna be the last time we're gonna tell you, then we're gonna cut you off. Are we clear?
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
All right. But what I'm saying is this, the rhetoric in this town is ridiculous, come on. She's just doing something a couple times a month. No big deal. It's not hundreds of people. I've never seen hundreds of people over there when I went. 3 times I picked my wife and daughter up there. I mean, I've never seen hundreds of people, maybe 20 people, but not hundreds. I just think it's ridiculous. People in this town, they need to move on. Come on, give me a break. We got nothing here. People's taxes are going up. What are we doing for the people of this town? There are people in this town I remember had to leave because they were paying $10,000 a year. 70-year-old people. I should be addressing that audience because 60% of them are over 60. And I'll be honest with you, that's a lot of money if they're on SSI. Right, guys? I don't think it's warranted. If they're bringing in some money to help, alleviate the tax issues and stuff, what's it do? They ain't doing no damage. I just don't get it. Why? I thought, in America, we give opportunities for people to make and prosper. And we're disallowing this person to have an opportunity to just make her place better. She's probably gonna reinvest the money back in her building, her home, and make it even beautiful than it is. Which is only, it's gonna increase the value of the area.
Okay, that issue has already been brought
But
up.
you understand what I'm
I
saying?
understand where you're going.
Okay.
But it's these conversations I'd like to limit to, do you have any new comments that haven't already been said that you could share with us?
I thought she does a great job over there.
Okay.
And it's good for the town. And
Okay.
a lot of people that do come in, they say a lot of great things about the area. And the town.
Yeah.
It's a nice town. And I just like to see more businesses come in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right?
Yeah,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
All right. Folks, have a great night.
Mike Barra?
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
You're still a citizen.
Thank you. John Hork, am I saying that right?
Cook,
Cook?
John Cook.
228 Main Street.
I'm in agreement with them.
Okay,
With who?
In-
The applicant.
Yeah, okay.
thank you. O'Leary.
Yes,
Also with two.
I guarantee you, this is all new.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just made some copies for you guys. Thank you.
I just wanna make sure my name is on the list.
What was it?
It should be, and another person who wasn't able to be here, the letters were submitted in advance, but I've been asked to read them. Kathleen Sheldon and Robin Blackburn.
Did you sign in?
Yes.
Kathleen, yes, that's on here.
Yeah, and Robin is out of town, but she had submitted her letter and asked me to read it tonight.
Okay.
Okay,
I
is that the
wanna
one
make
that had
sure-
the note up in the corner on her letter? Because we
It
did
might
see
have been,
one.
it might have been.
The one that said
And these
to
are
be read?
shorter than
Yes,
most that you've
yeah,
heard tonight.
yeah.
That's what I'm looking
I
at.
think
it's
it was
not
a
gonna
lady
take
named
long.
Robin.
And that may have been
That
my
was
note.
Robin.
Oh, okay,
I just wanna make sure that I have, my time.
okay, we did skip it, but we'll
We will.
get back to you now.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
thank you. No, that's fine, thank you.
I'll try and be quick. My name is Chris O'Leary. I moved to Bank Village in April of this year. I was attracted by the peace and quiet, by the bucolic nature of the neighborhood, and by the qualities of New Ipswich as a community. I've joined my neighbors in raising concerns about the impact of Silverstone teas on the quality of life in our little village. My purpose in speaking tonight is to point out deficiencies in the conditions that have been proposed for operation of the event venue at 99 River Road. Please understand, I'm specifically not suggesting that there is any set of conditions that would make the business acceptable, but given the difficulty in enforcing any set of conditions, it's critical that the language that's used to describe or limit what is permitted at the event venue is clear and unmistakable. As I will show, these conditions proposed by Silverstone Teas, they fail in terms of limiting the impact on the neighborhood. They fail in terms of responding to the concerns that have been expressed by the board. They fail to address the legitimate concerns of neighbors and abutters. I've attached the proposed conditions, and I've labeled 1 through 7 the ones that I'm going to address. Item 1 states Silverstone Teas shall be allowed to do business for a maximum of 4 days every 30. I think there's some ambiguity and some confusion about what it means to do business on a particular day, whether that's one event or 2 events. I understand the plan is for 1 event, but does that preclude 2 events? I don't know.
That's not the plan. The applicant just, not to interrupt you, but my question earlier to them, and the applicant responded, she's limited to a maximum of 50 clients per day, okay?
Okay.
If she wants to do 2 at 25, she's okay.
Oh, okay, I will tell you that having listened carefully to the proceedings, I remain a little bit confused.
Yeah.
I'll
That's
I'll
why
read that.
we're always, okay, let's get it clear, and I'm,
Understood. I'm also interested in understanding what that 30-day period is. Is that a month? Is that any rolling 30-day period? Is it, so I think that the 30-day period itself is a little ambiguous and requires some additional definition. If you look at bullet number 3, it states the operating hours shall be from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on any day of the week. This represents pretty dramatic expansion of the discussions that we've been having over the past few months. A 12-hour operating window is simply not reasonable and would dramatically increase the impact on neighbors and abutters. And I'll also note that nowhere in the proposed conditions have we heard the months during which operations would not be conducted. We've heard about this is a summer only, but this is, you know, the conditions that have been proposed, 12 months a year, 4 days every 30, 12 hours a day. It's a pretty big ask. Item number 5, an upgraded septic design plan shall be prepared by a certified engineer. I just had a septic installed. Obviously, having a plan is necessary but not sufficient. It needs to be installed and approved.
just for the record, they're not required to install it, okay?
They're just required to have a plan?
To have a plan, should their existing one fail, that they have a plan to accommodate another system.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Business shall primarily take place inside the residence except during the summer months. Item 6, tables and chairs can be set up outside but shall be screened from view from River or Courier Roads. Just point out that there are abutters, for example, at 97 River Road, that doesn't serve. They have unobstructed view of what's going on. And then finally, item 7, the noise condition. Noise shall be kept to a minimum and will follow the noise ordinances of the town of New Ipswich. And I've attached at the very back of the packet the noise ordinance. And you can see that the noise ordinance doesn't provide a lot of support here It applies only during the hours of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And second, it's not quantitative in nature, it's qualitative in nature. And it talks about unreasonable noise, relying on the determination of the police department to determine what's reasonable or not reasonable in terms of the level of noise. So unfortunately, the only conclusion that's possible to draw after reading these conditions is that they unacceptably expand the frequency, the timing, the intensity, and the intrusiveness of the proposed business. The business, which was illegal and unacceptable as it was originally described, is even more so with these proposed conditions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. Ashley, I'm assuming you're just
I'm just here to observe.
understood? Yes. Sorry. Kathleen Sheldon, sorry.
Yes. All right, I guess everybody knows now. My name is Kathleen Sheldon. I live on Old Wilton Road. Just a quick look backwards. At the first ZBA meeting several months ago, we were told that the application for a variance and these hearings before the board provided Jane and Silver Scontees with a clean slate, and that once the variance application was presented, the abutters would have an opportunity to ask any questions to the board, and following that, others would have an opportunity to make a statement if so choosing. I'm so choosing to make a statement in favor of Silver Scontee and their parties. Representing herself and most of the neighbors, we were told back then by Ms. Clark that everyone in Bank Village neighborhood was close. They talked every day, they did lots of things together, and how much they supported each other. Over the past few weeks and months, we have learned that this applies, it seems, to everyone in the neighborhood except for Jane and Silver Scontees. While it's absolutely appropriate for neighbors to take an interest, question, and learn about what's being proposed, what has followed has included a series of untrue allegations, accusations, and generally an ongoing and escalating confrontational series of events. This even includes allegations from the neighbors that private family cookouts and birthday parties were part of an illegal business. I have attended, as have some of the others here, those private functions, and they were not illegal. It was even in the newspaper that they were illegal events. I mean, that's just outrageous. Concerns were expressed about safety issues with cars being parked on the road early on. And in response, when a parking area on Jane's property that already existed was proposed to accommodate that road parking so that it would be off-road parking, an objection was raised about one rock being moved, as well as the amount of debris that would come onto the road from the parking area. I'm not entirely clear on just what this debris is and how it would be different from anyone who has an unpaved driveway. Concerns were also raised about the increase in traffic, but with tea parties a maximum of 4 days a month, with a maximum number of cars arriving and departing within minutes of each other, I don't see how this is any different from normal household traffic for a property of this size, especially if there's more than one occupant. In this case, there is only one, but typically there is more than one. There is only one, but typically there's more than one occupant. Certainly, others in the neighborhood have family events throughout the year, which also results in a temporary increase in traffic for those events. Jane and Silver Scontee has done everything requested, yet the neighbors have continued to oppose her in multiple ways, often accusatory and negative. The tea parties are lovely and fun. I have been to several and brought family and friends from out of town and out of state. The guests are always delightful, enjoying a quiet couple of hours, sharing tea and treats with each other and their children. I have to wonder why until tonight we have not even heard any positive support for these tea parties. Just a few additional points. In general, but specifically applying to this application. Home-based businesses are increasingly important and provide an income opportunity that may not otherwise be available, and they should be encouraged. Women-owned businesses should be supported. This particular business is so low impact on the neighborhood, any given tea party will not even be noticed by a casual passerby. Jane's home is the perfect setting for an English tea party, and I believe this business deserves the opportunity to continue to provide both an amazing experience for those attending and an income to its owner.
Thank you.
And then I also have Robin's statement.
She's not here to read it, we've got a record that it's,
Well, she changed the ending,
okay.
I will leave you copies, but she asked me specifically, can I just read you what she asked me to ask?
Mm-hmm.
She says, I have been to all of the ZBA meetings regarding Miss Elwell's quest for a variance to operate her tea room. Unfortunately, I couldn't be here tonight. I have asked Kathy Sheldon to read the following in my stead. My name is Robin Blackburn Ellis. My parents lived in New Ipswich for 25 years on Perry Road. The rest only take 2 minutes. Can I go ahead? They came in 1973 to open a family tennis club. In the beginning, someone had set up a petition to close down the club. They were convinced we were going to put up lights and ruin the sky for the stargazers and have night parties. These rumors were put to rest. when
We
my
actually
parent-
read this letter
So I
earlier
did
today.
you want me to just read the ending that she changed?
Yes.
Could you just
Okay,
read that
sure,
part,
that's
please?
fine. Okay. Her last ending is, if this variance is passed, will it be enough? My parents were able to turn a similar situation around, but it was a two-way effort from the neighbors. Is this community willing to do the same? Otherwise, as suggested at an earlier meeting, if you think the value of your houses might go down with a cozy tea room in your neighborhood, think again. I would not call this a friendly, caring neighborhood, but more of a self-entitled, small-minded group of people who have nothing better to do than spy on their neighbors' every move. They have created a perception of their own neighborhood that would turn any prospective
Let's keep it
buyer-
Right, yes,
professional. That's
yes,
that's
if
the end.
it's-
Starts
yeah.
going that way.
Okay.
I like the other ending better.
That's,
You can give that to Sue.
okay,
for the
and that's what she asked, you know.
Pretty
Okay.
true though.
Thanks.
No, it's not, you don't get there, you can't say that.
All right, let's,
Jeff Mahonen, anything to say?
No, I'm just here to support the Tea Party.
Thank
Uh,
you have copies of these?
Is it Corey or Sherry? Sherry?
Sherry Hill?
Sherry Hill?
She left.
She left? Listen.
Miss Greg. Greg Hanselman.
Oh, Greg Hansel?
Hanselman.
Greg
Greg?
Hanselman?
Hi, I'm Greg Hanselman. I own a property at 71 Main Street, which is in Village District 2. Yeah, I bought it over 40 years ago with all kinds of protective covenants on it, about what I can do and what I cannot do. I also practiced real estate for 32 years in New Ipswich and wrote the National Register nomination for Center Village. I'm very invested in zoning. When I moved here, we didn't have zoning. I met Liz way back in the early 80s when there was a big, wide community effort to get zoning. And I was on the ZBA for I don't know how many years, but many years ago.
Why don't you come back?
Well, I still own property here and I'm invested. I still own a property here where I pay taxes like everybody in the room probably. And I would just like to say that I don't want to repeat a lot of stuff. Jane's, I consider a friend of mine, a social acquaintance more than a close friend, but I've been invited to her home. And this is not a vendetta. This is about enforcing zoning and the precedent that this board will set by what you decide to do tonight. And I've listened, all I want to do now is correct a couple of misstatements that I think need to go on the record. Mrs. Holmes talking about Bill Courier and other historic people in town who had businesses long before zoning was adopted. That's irrelevant. Mr. Hoyska acting like Jane has saved this property by planting flowers and doing stuff. That is ridiculous. I sold the property when Mrs. Hoffman, who put the covenants on it, sold it. I represented it. I was a realtor, as I said, for 32 years. The property's always been well maintained and very lovely without people extracting a nickel from it to pay the taxes, quote unquote. That's irrelevant. We're talking about the zoning of Village District 1, not all this other stuff. Mr. I've forgotten his name, roaring on about property values. What does he know? I was a realtor for 32 years. If you live in a town that doesn't enforce its zoning, guess what happens to property values? So, that I would just like to say for the record. And then the other thing is, on this board, you make a decision. You need to be very mindful of the fact that the decision you make, if it needs to be enforced by the selectmen or whatever, look at the record. Cease and desist. Nothing done. So please choose your position and your resolution very carefully. The future of our zoning depends on it.
Thank you. Is there anyone that did not sign in? That
Oh, I think it was 20. Where's that?
says NA. Tony Patty? Are you Tony?
Yes. I agree with what Kathy stated in her statement.
Okay. But nothing to add?
No.
Okay.
That's everything. Are we? Did everybody get a chance to speak? Has anybody not spoken? Yes, she has.
Anything new to add?
Oh, I have something to say. I haven't had a chance at all. This is my variance, my application. I'd like a chance to say something.
Yep.
Please. Okay. Alright. Just bear with me. I'm just gonna sit here because I'm talking to you guys, right? Hey, if you've ever had the chance to go to the UK, you would know that afternoon tea is a big deal to the British. It might just be as simple as a quick cuppa at 3 p.m. But if you're lucky and have the chance, sitting down to a full afternoon tea is one of life's nicer pleasures.
Alright, excuse me. Again, we're trying to save time and I see single space.
You know what? But I have waited for
3 meetings.
3
Okay,
years.
but let's
for
just
me.
stick to the items that are part of
No,
your...
I want to be able to say something to support my application for my variance. I've listened to 2 months worth of people going on at me. Just don't interrupt me, please, and give me a chance to speak. I am asking you that. Please.
And I'm just asking you
Okay.
to stick to the items pertaining to your application, please.
Just as I say it, please just let me speak.
Okay.
I've been very patient listening to everybody else and numerous newspaper articles about me. I'm just getting a chance to respond. So, please. Okay. It's quiet and calming and brings out the best in people as generations of a family and friends get together and spend some quality time. Millbrook House and other homes in town have a long history of tea parties and garden parties. Mrs. Mary Taberham, who owned Millbrook House, my house roughly 100 years ago, was famous for her tea parties. New Ipswich Historical Society recently had photos on their Facebook page showing town residents all sitting to tea on a lawn. There's something about a country house and this quintessential British pastime, and that's all I want for my guests to experience this. I've been compared in a neighbour's statement to other tea shops in the area and told to go do business like them, go where they are. Well, I don't have a retail loose leaf tea shop with a sideline selling cake and tea on paper plates as does the Cozy Tea Cart in Brookline, nor do I have an antique shop with a spa and coffee and tea cafe attached like Etager in Amherst. Both are open 6 days per week. Silver Scone would probably be better compared to Piccadilly Place with their reservation-only dining and set menu with parking amongst the woods. It is not an event venue either, but my neighbours have maintained that I am. Piccadilly Place is open 7 days a week with 3 servings per day. That means they host nearly as many people in 1 day as I would in an entire month. Silver Scone is unique and I plan to keep it that way. Silver Scone Tea started with pressure from people that had been to my house for a tea party and loved it. The first one I did here in town was for a local resident, Deb Holmes, as a fundraiser when she was very ill. It was the first time people I didn't even know had come to the house, taken afternoon tea and donated to her fund. I just served and boiled water and everyone had so much fun they asked if I could do another, so I did. Now helping Deb during her last year of life made me realize how fragile it is. My marriage had not been a good one and hadn't been for a very long time. I had spent 30 years of my life married to an egotistical bully and manipulator, and also an extremely intelligent and charming man. He could charm the pants off women and often did. But it was a life, but it was a, excuse me?
I said, oh my.
I can't take any more of this. This is great. I have to leave. Adults were sharing a lecture about
But it was a life-changing moment for me to think I could actually host tea parties, make a living from it, and live a life I deserved without him. My kids cheered and said it was about time I did something for myself. They have continued to be my biggest supporters, both during the divorce and also the situation I now find myself in with my neighbors. I think that's what saddens me the most about my neighbors, though. Not one of them asked how I was doing during the whole divorce, and the surprising amount of confidence and sense of independence I had gained building Silver Scone during that time was wiped out from underneath me by the tactics they used. Now, normal neighborly people who have a problem or concern knock on your door and ask a question, but not them. They got together, blindsiding me, and petitioned the closure of something that had literally saved my life. No questions asked of me, no concerns raised to me. But recently, one of those neighbors declared that I should have asked their permission to do Silver Scone teas. Bank Village is not an HOA. Even as I work on a variance, they continue to try and sidetrack my gains and come up with more and more lies and ridiculous complaints. We've all heard them. Nancy Clark's opening statement way back in August was that it isn't personal. I think that was the biggest lie of all. But my taste of independence is strong. I tolerated one bully for 30 years. I certainly have the gumption to do it again. And as a side note, not a single neighbor among this petitioning group has ever been to a tea party at Silver Scone, including the fundraiser for Deborah Holmes. No, I'm not much of a businesswoman. In fact, I still have trouble making profit. But I am very creative, and my art school background means my ideas run rampant. And I love to come up with new ideas and make people happy when they come for tea. I'm not trying to be the next Martha Stewart, and I've said before, there are way too many other things I want to do and spend my time on, not just tea parties, and traveling, hanging with my friends, my grandson, my children. Teas are a way for me to pay my utility bills and live in the house I love, and make people happy who come to them. In fact, I worked out that I would spend a total of 1.6% of my time hosting tea parties. 1.6 if I had them 4 afternoons a month for 3 hours tops. So, Mr. O'Leary, that's how long a tea party is. It's 2 hours or 3 hours, it's not 12 hours. Not a lot of time really, and certainly not enough to spoil a lifestyle living in a small village. Lots of people have come to tea at Millbrick House and no one ever mentioned anything about zoning. Not an excuse I should have. You don't know what you don't know. But now I'm doing everything asked of me to satisfy the ZBA and hopefully continue my small business. The support from New Ipswich people and others from the surrounding towns and states has been overwhelming. Someone mentioned I should do a petition, and so I did. 1,100 people signed it in 2 days. More than half of those were from New Ipswich alone. I received many beautiful emails, messages, comments, and words of encouragement from people in this town and from all over. They all want to see me continue this business. The only negativity has been from the 14 people represented by Nancy Clark. I've written self-imposed conditions that Silver Scone will follow. There have been many businesses in Bank Village, and a variance attached to my property will be so specific to my extremely part-time tea party business that if I ever sell or move away, which I have absolutely no intention of doing, no business in their right mind would care about the variance and look elsewhere. Bob Fournier stated, and I quote, "A brewery could move in if the variance is granted." Now, I don't know of any investors willing to throw money into a brewery that could only open one afternoon a week and have such limited number of patrons. Being granted a limited use variance for Millbrick House doesn't mean that every other home can then open up a full-blown restaurant. Also, as a side note, it was Rob who suggested the entrance in the wall from Currier Road was too small for emergency vehicles. That got me thinking that if I needed help if there was a fire in my pasture or an accident on the tractor, I should take out the rock that was causing the issue, and we all know how that is going. I am doing whatever is asked of me by the ZBA to get the variance. My home is well maintained, I keep a tidy yard, I don't have any junk cars. I just run a small business that no one will even see the guests when they're here. I took to heart the parking issue and worked out a way to have off-street parking. I just enjoy showing people a house that has a wonderful history, giving them an opportunity to experience a tradition from another culture. People have travelled from afar to come to tea at Silver Scone, and I'm proud of that. And not all the teas are to make money. I have and will continue to donate my time to outreach programs for women. Women encourage women. That is, except the one in Bank Village, who sent me an anonymous, disgusting, name-calling,
Keep it
hate mail
professional.
letter telling me I need to leave here and to get ready for payback. Obviously not the sharpest tool in the shed. They used a coded stamp to mail it, which is a federal offense. So that within 2 hours of showing the right authorities, they knew the location the stamp had been purchased, that it had been bought on December the 8th last year, and also the credit card company, Capital One, and card number used to pay for it. I'll be working on this issue more in the coming weeks. These neighbours will go to any lengths to stop me because it's personal to them. Please, I urge you to grant my variance and let me continue with my new independence and business. You have my answers to your 5 criteria and my self-imposed conditions, along with surveys and maps. I hope you make a decision in my favour. Thank you.
Ms. Elwell, did we ever get a updated plan from Meridian?
From Monadnock Septic Design.
I've got everything for
We have those plans that we're prepared to present tonight.
Okay, there were 2 plans we were supposed to be getting, one from Monadnock and the other one from Meridian.
Yes, we
Okay,
have those,
good.
we have those plans. I can present those. We have also, we also have some different conditions than we presented at the last
Okay,
hearing in
yeah.
October.
Yeah.
Because the scale of this operation has been reduced. And so the conditions reflect a reduced scale of operations.
Do you have them printed out?
Yes, we have them printed out, I can provide them to you.
Just so I can put it in a binder. Not right now.
These are the
Send it
new
if you can.
conditions
Thank you.
that reflect a revised scale.
No, we're supposed to get a plan. That's a level. This is the one. Except that's the second. You don't have. You're supposed to submit.
We also have revised plans that you requested.
Do you have the one from Monadnock Septic
Yes.
Design and the one from, I believe it was Meridian you were gonna get for the wetlands?
Yeah.
This is the septic system plan from the Monadnock Septic Design. As you, we have a larger scale plan, but we don't have a full.
There's a larger one if you want that one. You can have this one. And I didn't do a draw over it, the people at Meridian did it. They wanted to show the thing. So this is the,
Alright, let's.
okay. These are copies, if I don't receive all that one. And these are just more copies of that.
I'll take one of these.
Okay.
Can I have one?
Okay. And then this goes with that. Sorry, I have. And then this goes with this. This is just the area, there's a few trees here that I wanna take out. That's the only alteration I'm gonna be making. All
Could you
this is
speak up a
already
little
clear.
more?
Yes,
Could
right.
you speak up a little more so that?
Yes, so all this area is already cleared and I've just marked it on here. It's exactly the same scale, graph scale as this one. It's just I've drawn on where my cleared area is right now. This is the only bit, and this is how what Meridian said as well. It's the only bit that needs a few. There's like half a dozen trees that need to be taken down there so that I can open this up and back that out. So it's the only part that there is to
So
change.
is the proposed parking lot
It's right in
drawn?
here. Yep, this is this part here.
So that's
So it's
the
just-
trees.
That's the trees. There's the existing shed right there. So that's where the people come in. It's
So we
just
don't
this
have an
area here.
outline of the proposed parking lot.
It's not on this one. This is
It's
not
on-
a thing. That's where it is on there.
And I think at one of our previous meetings, I was confused in that I thought you were
Going
coming
further
in
up?
and
No, that's
We
what I'm
changed
showing.
that.
coming in and then coming out, but you're not.
I'm not gonna do that.
Okay.
And we're going one in, one out, and it's much
This type of
smaller.
parking configuration
I,
will not work.
it might be straight on.
Yeah,
I don't
be
know.
straight
It'd be
on.
straight on.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just the way I've drawn the lines. But I wanted them to be 10 feet wide and 20 feet long, and just to show you that 14 can easily fit in there.
They fit when you have,
Straight. I'll put it
Yeah.
straight if I need to.
which I don't know that you've got enough room between and.
You can. You're only supposed to have 12 feet between,
20.
and there's 23 there. There's 23 feet between.
12
as
feet
car-
between?
There's only, if you have on a site on the angle like
Yeah.
that, it's 12
Because
feet.
you're going one way, but not
Yeah.
But if you have
Straight
them
on.
straight, it's like there's 23 feet there, and I think 20 feet is the
Do you have any
thing.
plan with dimensions?
That's what I
I
was curious
actually
about.
forgot to put it on. This is 70. So, and this is absolutely to scale. So, this is 70.
So that's 70.
Yeah. If that kind of gives you any help. I meant to put them on, I'm
Do
so
you know
sorry.
what the width of this would be?
If I had to think, I want to say it's like 90, something like that, 80, 90. I don't know, sorry, you're using a pen for you.
Scale 50.
Did you want one of these? Sorry.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you could still make it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You'd be at 36. Is that gonna be, 18 and
Usually we have a 12, 18-foot spot. It's usually another 18 and 18. The car's as long as the parking spots.
yeah,
May I
That's-
say something?
so they're at,
Mr.
Yeah, I
Chair?
put them at 20 feet, and which I think is more than I needed to be, and 10 feet wide.
yeah, something to scale isn't right there.
I'd like to see it on.
I can't get it on here though.
but
Yeah,
If I do this, they have to do a whole new engineering thing and get the
They can't just draw the lines on there?
No, I wish that I asked
Absolutely
them.
they can.
They can't.
Oh
We've-
yeah, they can.
No, they can't.
I do it all the time.
Could you? Because they would not.
no, he
We've had
can't.
this.
I'm not, I don't have that stamp. I just,
We've had this conversation. So this is all for wetlands delineation and all the setbacks, and that this is the cleared
And-
area. And then they even put in the trees that I needed to take down. And he said that to have them, or to have him that did this, put it on here, it would have to be a whole new engineering department that did the parking
oh, we do
thing.
have to do it. We have 7,800 square feet called out
Yeah.
on there.
But the way I'm gonna look at this, he still needs to go to planning board.
Why? Because it's less than 800 square feet. That's the only part I'm changing.
No, you're improving 8,000 square feet.
8,000?
7,800 is what it says on here.
No, 800.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's not a 7. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
No,
it was
no,
a
no.
7.
I was like, I am? No. That's the only bit I'm changing. The rest is clear and ready to go.
Yeah, but you gotta gravel that and improve it still.
It's already gravel.
It's already gravelled. It's been there for ages. We've parked cars on it, we've done things before.
Mr. Chair? May
Yes.
I make a comment that if this board approves or grants this variance, it would be the planning board that would do a site plan review and would have to approve the parking lot.
That's what we're reviewing right now.
So while you're doing it now, if we're concerned about time, it's not necessary because it's the planning board's job.
I'd like to address that comment, if I could, about the site plan review.
You can in a second. Liz, that's what we were just talking about, just for the record. Go ahead.
The size of the parking lot has been reduced from 18 to 14 unit cars, and the amount of actual alteration from the existing parking area is less than 800 square feet. In order for the site plan review to be conducted and to trigger, you have to have a development that is greater than 800 square feet. This is not any alteration greater than 800 square feet. And this parking area has been in existence since 1963. I can show you an aerial photograph, and I want
No need to.
to make it part of the record.
You can submit it to Susan for what you'd like, but if you're showing me, and I do know as I think it was Mrs. Holmes was saying, previous owners and whatnot had utilized that area. But if you're talking about clearing trees to construct that lot, then it is not existent.
No, the only area of trees that will be cleared will be less than 800 square feet.
Right, okay.
Okay? And so, under the site plan review, you have to have a development that's greater than 800 square feet. This development or modification of an existing parking lot that has been in existence since 1963, it grandfathers the site plan review.
You know, a commercial, if you grant the waiver, it's a commercial business and that triggers a site plan review.
There's nothing in the site plan review that says a commercial business triggers site plan review. You have to have a development, whether it be commercial, residential, that is over 800 square feet of alteration.
Yeah, we'll take a look into
Parking lot
that.
is not.
So let us verify.
Another development.
Sir, hang on, please. That's what I'm reading here.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But that would still imply.
Mr. Fari was reading the same thing that I'm seeing here in the site plan review regulations. And the 800 square feet kicks in for what's considered an expedited review by the planning board. But you still need to go to the planning board.
Well, we can go to the planning board for either an expedited review or a waiver from the site plan review process itself.
Correct,
because
as
the
long as we're under
development
the, we just wanna make sure we're on the understanding, your next step, should you receive a variance approval, is going to the planning board.
to ask for either a waiver or an expedited review
Correct.
because the development alteration is less than 800 square feet. And we will do that, provided we get a variance.
They can't give you a waiver, they can grant you an expedited review.
There's a process for a waiver as well, under the site plan review bylaws. You can seek a waiver if the alteration is less than 800 square feet and the development will not have impacts as determined by the planning board. So a waiver is a process that we can request, as well as the expedited review. If the planning board doesn't grant the waiver, then we go through the expedited review.
I'm reading it differently than your interpretation, so we'll leave it, that's
for
later.
them.
Exactly.
That's for
So,
planning.
and I would think that the parking would be addressed by that.
True. The actual
We are
layout or
also
whatever, yeah.
proposing less than 20 parking spaces, which is another trigger of the site plan review process. The parking lot that has been presented is 14.
You
Right, but
downsized
in
it, but
the previous notes, and I'm gonna have to go back and look at it, is how you arrived at the number of parking spaces that was gonna be required to meet.
3 per.
It's 3 per person, 3 per, 3,
Pizza
one,
burger.
yeah, it's 1 parking space per 3 people that can
Okay.
be at the tea party. So it's
50
technically 17 would be for 51, but I have 5 parking spaces in the front of my house, which would be part of handicap too. So there's 14 there, and 14 there, and 5 in the front, that's 19 actually, so I have more than enough to cover the 50 people.
17.
Does that make sense? Did I explain it
I'm just
properly?
doing my own math. for-
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Which was, yeah,
more than that.
Okay.
probably.
so we have the
The other thing I provided to you,
Yes, we
is
did.
the Monadnock design. That design that I handed to you is for a septic system in the event that the existing septic system fails. That septic system design shows a reserve area that can accommodate up to 50 persons. If you look at the key on the left-hand side, you'll see the notation for up to 50 persons.
Yeah, a three-bedroom
Do
house.
you have a
with
full-size plan?
No, this literally came in today.
Cause I
He
can't
emailed
read this, so.
I know.
I'll get you a full size.
We'll get a
you
full size
size,
one.
but that was emailed to us.
It was emailed today, so I didn't have a chance to even go anywhere to get it
But
printed.
it's not stamped,
It's
it's
a
noted as preliminary.
It's a preliminary thing to show you that they can do it, and he will go ahead and do it.
When will we have the stamp?
When do you want it by?
Last time we met.
I can only push him as hard as I can push him. He's been working on this for ages. He got me that to show that it can fit in. I'll have the,
Probably can have it in a week.
and that's, if that's
State
part of my
plan.
conditions to have that in your hand and the state done, then that should be part of that.
Mr. Lage, I have a digital copy here if you wanna blow it up and read something.
I think David Moore
No,
was
I
looking
think-
for a
yeah,
family
I'll wait till we get the, thank you.
for the record. And we have the letter,
Yeah, we have the one from,
but this doesn't. This suggested asbestos on the wall. Did it say anything about maintaining?
Maintain the driveway?
Do you have a letter from Monadnock Conservancy?
Yes.
That's dated October?
Yes,
Yes, we wanted to make sure that was part of the.
dated the 17th.
17th of October?
Yes,
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure that you had a copy of that.
we have that.
Because I have other copies.
Can you, we can go item by item, but can you highlight the difference between your two proposed conditions for a variance? What you changed?
Compared to what
Yeah,
they
I
did
think I
have?
can.
I was gonna say, I don't know if I have the other.
Let me, get that. Okay. First of all, in the proposed revised conditions for the variance, we do not mention the word minimum impact home occupation.
Yep,
We eliminated that.
thank you.
It still maintains that the business will do a maximum of 4 days per every 30 days, as outlined in RSA 143A3, 5, which is the temporary food service establishment, occasional food service establishment, which is mentioned in the second condition. The operating hours, the reason we chose 9 AM to 9 PM is not to have events for 12 hours. As Jane has indicated, most events last for 2 to 3 hours.
Right. The only reason we put it maybe from earlier to earlier on any day of the week is because if someone does have a bridal shower tea party, sometimes they want it as a like a brunch kind of time, not as a brunch, but as a tea party, but before lunchtime or right after lunchtime, so there's no set time, so I try and just accommodate whatever, but they would be the ones.
Just for my own edification, can I ask what drove the 9 PM time frame?
I don't know, it was just 9 to 9, it was just an easier thing. I mean, I think mainly because, if I do want to do one, you know, later in the day or something like that, and it just has I'm just covered in time. Sometimes in the winter time.
I'm just saying, I'm hearing from the residents, and one of the things is
Okay.
because of the quiet, would you be receptive to,
Bring it in a bit, sure.
yeah,
Yeah? Where do you wanna bring it to?
what do you wanna bring it to?
We're negotiating here.
No, we're not.
What about 6 PM?
You have to understand, we would be looking at approving something that would be forever on your property.
Right.
Whether you moved on and someone else started a shop there
Yeah.
and wanted to start be going from 9 to 9.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's,
They would
That's
have to
fair.
come back before the,
Right.
we understand
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you guys don't, is that a 4 PM end date, end time, or start time?
4 PM. I think it was
There's
9.
no 4
Six.
PM, 9 AM to 6 PM.
I mean, 6 PM, so is it the last one gonna start at 6 and go to?
No,
No.
it would end
Be
at
end,
6
be
PM.
done.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
And that's
Sure.
fine with me.
Question, were you talking about changes to just the conditions, or were you?
At one point in time, we had asked
Was it
them,
changed to the application?
no, at one point in time, probably 2 meetings ago, we had asked them to give us a list of
Yes,
their proposed conditions.
yes, but I thought you talked about they had removed the wording of minimal impact home occupation, that
Yes.
wasn't,
They did,
We did.
because
That was-
their previous one had that on there.
Mhm.
The board had referenced, this is
oh,
not a
the
minimum
previous-
home.
The previous, proposed condition?
Mhm.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
continue, sorry.
We modified the condition to say instead, we will prepare, we provided you with a certified engineer plan that will be presented to the Board of Health and ZBA to permit up to 50 persons as designed and allowed. That
Okay.
was modified. And we have presented you with the plan. We recognize that it is not completed. It is a preliminary plan to show you that such a system could exist and function on the property and meet all the appropriate setbacks. The fourth condition addresses that the business will primarily take place in the residence and except during the summer hours when some tables and chairs may be set up outside and behind the house, and that will be screened from view from River Road and Courier Road.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
That, where it is exactly, it cannot be seen from any other houses.
That's not true.
Well, then I'll put a 1-panel fence up. You would have to be peeking through your fence to be able to see it.
We have
Okay,
a
let's
hill, we're up on the
continue.
hill, looking down.
Okay.
Sorry.
please continue.
Yeah,
The signage regarding is still the same,
can
maintaining
we,
that.
just because a question came up earlier, and well, I think it would be relevant at this time. Because this item that we're just talking about now being outside says for the summer months.
Mm-hmm.
Are there months that you do not hold events?
Normally
Are they
the-
year round?
I won't ever do them in January because I wanna do something else and go off somewhere warm. I don't know, if I have lost, it'll be now 7 months of income. I don't know if I want to be limited to now only do them another 6 months from next year, cause now I'm closed down till May, if that's the plan. I might want to do one in February from,
Okay, so the
Valentine's
answer
Day?
to the question is you do go year round.
I might do, yes.
Okay.
I haven't done before, but I might do. But not every. We're talking 11 months out of the year because I'm not going to do them in January.
Okay,
The other modification that we make to the conditions is a second powder room half bath shall be available to tea party guests. It said in the prior condition, it will be built and permitted. It has been built and it has been permitted and a CO has been signed off on it by the building inspector.
So that's not on here then, right? That's a closed
Already
issue.
done.
It's
Yeah,
already
okay,
done,
that's-
yeah.
It's not, I don't see it on,
It's the last item on the first page.
okay, did we skip a few of them?
Yeah, I skipped because I'm only trying to cover the changes.
Okay,
Oh.
I'm
You
sorry.
asked me to
Yep,
just cover the
thank you.
changes.
Yep,
Rather than talk about them all, and I'm just
Yeah.
pointing out the changes. The other changes on the back of the second page, on the top condition, it says off-road parking shall be available for up to 50 guests. Parking will be located off of Courier Road up to 14 spaces, before it was 18 spaces. And an additional 5 spaces will be available, including handicap parking in the front driveway. Signs will guide guests who need to use this option. No parking shall be allowed on the Monadnock Conservancy easement. So that was changed. The other condition at the second to the last condition was the same. So those are the principal changes.
okay.
Hypothetical, if you, I mean, do you sell parking space tickets with your reservations or anything? Or how do you know how many cars are coming? I mean, I don't have an average here, but hypothetically, what happens, let's say 30 cars show up. I'm just throwing it out there, then what happens?
What does any restaurant do if they have, you know, one person in one car comes to a restaurant that seats 50? I don't know, what do? They park if they have to. There's no, it's not illegal to park on the road. If they have to have overflow on there every now and again, then that's what it is, but I doubt that would ever happen. It's very, like I said, it's unlikely that I will have 50 people at a tea party. You wanted the maximum. It's unlikely that there'll even be that 18 cars. I don't know.
Just asking, okay.
I know.
Alright.
I don't know.
So there is no, yeah. I guess.
Usually guests arriving are four to six per car.
4 to 6? Well,
Yeah.
four, yeah,
For
3 or
the
4.
latest, the SUVs, yeah, there's 6
Yeah.
people on.
They tend to come together because they come from so far.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you have to submit, or?
Yes, we have a written rebuttal to all of the abutter statements that have been read into the record. I'm not gonna read them, I'm just gonna hand them to you.
Okay.
Because there's 15 comments that were made that we thought were significant comments. And we wanted to address them and have them be part of the record.
You're right.
I think a lot of these statements are,
But these were all statements that have been made in the last,
3
3
hearings.
hearings.
yeah.
And so
No,
we felt
I
it was
understand
necessary
that, but
to address them, but we don't wanna take the time to go through each and every one of them.
thank you for letting us take a look at them ourselves. We are just gonna be looking strictly at the 5 criteria,
Yeah.
more so than,
Mm-hmm.
he said, she said.
I can understand that.
Close the public hearing, make a motion.
I make a motion to close the, well, do I need to state that, I guess?
Yeah.
We are,
Close the public discussion.
we are now gonna close the public side of this discussion, and we're gonna,
The board is gonna.
the board is gonna discuss amongst themselves the 5 criteria, and then hold a vote. So your participation is now over. You are welcome to stay. It is not required. Do I have a motion to close the public portion of this meeting?
I make a motion to close the public portion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. that had all of the information
We'll go
about.
through each one individually. Let's make sure first that we get the right section of the ordinance.
Yeah, I know I had said it was supposed to be C4, C, if I could strike out.
Okay,
Before, should be 4C.
4C.
Yep. Special exemptions.
Right, so it's a variance to 4C. Yeah. Yeah. Which with this would have allowed inns of bed and breakfast. We go through each one of these individually.
I think we should.
Yeah, we have to.
Each one
We have to,
individually.
Yep.
Sure. So number one, the proposed use would not be contrary to the public interest because. The proposed use, limited part-time use of a small portion of a residential property, mostly located within a rural district, partially within Bank Village, to hold tea parties for guests. The use is principally within the residence, no more than 4 times per month, mostly on weekends, limited use of the outside property screened from the public. It will have off-street parking within the area of Courier Road, owned by the applicant. The area for parking has an existing driveway and parking area outside the conservation easement area. The 35-acre parcel is mostly within the rural area and only partially within Bank Village.
Excuse me, if there's any discussion that needs to be had, we'd ask if you could go out into the hallway, please.
It's distracting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So on the public interest, I don't know how we can say that the public's not interested in a business. You know, it's, we always refer to, what's the master plan say? Which, our master plan, even though it needs to be updated, probably 25 years old, but with updates, but I think they're always saying, try and promote the small business, which I gotta look at this and say, well, that's what the public interest is promoting a small business. I did struggle with the effect of saying, well, yes, it's a village district, I live in a village district, and I'm saying, well, geez, if I lived in one that had very limited businesses, I'd like to keep it that way. But we can't, you know, we can't deny somebody a use of a property that falls with parameters. So I'm looking at public interest to say,
The master plan says
To do
encouraging
it.
growth for small businesses and home
yeah, I
home
don't know how you
occupations.
guys feel.
I read that,
Public
it
interest.
sounds familiar, I agree on that point, however, it does seem like a little more than a small home business, but
Well, that's, I agree, and that's why
That's what
we
you're
told
saying.
her it wasn't a minimum
Right.
home impact, but it is, when somebody's operating what could be 2 days a week, which is what they're saying, or actually 1 day a week, 4 times a month, I think the business, even though we don't have, but it's a minimal impact, and does that impact outweigh, or is it less than the public interest to have that type of a business there? You know, we have heard from some of the I won't say all, but some of the abutters that are saying, well, it's not in their interest, which I can understand. But I gotta look at the other side of the coin and say, well, what about as a whole, to say, is it in the interest of New Ipswich, cause that's what we're looking at, for our ordinances, and I understand, this evening, many of the things have come up about setting a precedence, and we're always setting a precedent, you know, but in my 10+ years, I guess, on this board, I can't say I've ever had anybody submit for a business in Bank Village, so I don't know how this is gonna spawn more businesses, and right now, by special exception, as I was just reading earlier, is that you could have an inn, bed and breakfast in your Golden, and I would think a business like that would have been more disruptive.
It'd be less people, but it'd be could be 7 days a week.
Constantly, yeah.
And also, this, I wanna call it food establishments, is, if you were one day village district over, it would be allowed by special exemption even. Wouldn't be a variance
In Village District 1,
in central, in village district 2.
2, that's what I meant,
Yep.
Village District 2. I don't know what we would have had there. Yeah, I guess it falls under an eating and drinking
Well, yeah,
establishment.
that's what I was thinking, yeah. It doesn't, it's pretty, it does seem on par with the towns.
Danielle?
Yeah, I agree.
So we agreed not contrary to the public interest.
Correct. Number 2 says the proposed use is not contrary to the spirit of the ordinance. I guess I probably don't, we need to
Right.
read that more responsibly of our own
Yeah,
input here.
I think, how do you guys feel the spirit of, what was the intent of the ordinance for Village District 1, to preclude this type of business?
The purpose of the district is to retain the character of the long-established villages in New Ipswich, to relieve the pressure of growth in rural districts by allowing greater density in the village district in such a manner as not to cause water quality, water supply problems that would necessitate the town to provide means of public sewage disposal and public water supply. And that's the general cap of Village District 1's intent.
And I don't see that this business would necessitate a requirement that septic system couldn't handle their existing well.
It seems like with 1,000 gallons a day, that's pretty, it's pretty substantial. I mean, I guess what about on the flip side, if this was 10 years down the road, something that could potentially have a higher sewer load, but I guess I'm not even totally sure what that would
But I
even
think
be.
the ZBA board at that time would have to deal with that, because that would have to, it wouldn't be covered under this variance. If somebody purchased a property and they want to do something that would require that, that's changing
We're
the
not
use.
putting a restriction that it's a tea party, right? Is that what it's gonna say? Okay.
If and when a motion is made, I would hope it is, because that is
what we're approving.
What is being asked. It's not being asked that it's a restaurant. It's not being asked to be a supplemental kitchen.
And therefore, anybody that ever came in behind would be a change of use.
Right. And I think as you read that definition for that village district, it's hard to believe that when that zoning ordinance was written, they're saying to reduce the pressures of the rural community and put them into village
It
districts.
seems like you would wanna go with.
Go the opposite
I
way,
agree.
but
But I think that's also a little bit implying more of dwellings, residential living, smaller lot sizes, but you are by implicitly also saying a little tighter knit
Right.
together.
and because this dwelling is there now, and we've received a preliminary that, yeah, septic won't be an issue and the water's there, I don't see that we're overdeveloping that district, because it is an existing facility, there's no expansion.
Yeah, just wanted to see on that proposed. Did that order of conditions?
There's the one that they submitted.
Yeah, did it actually say for tea parties?
Yeah.
It says as a catering establishment. Oh, to serve tea party events.
Yeah.
Okay, it's in there.
Danielle,
You know?
anything you wanna share on that one?
No, not really. I agree with you guys.
So we're in agreement that it's not contrary to the spirit of the ordinance. Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice because, and I can't look at this as monetary,
Right.
I know that was raised earlier, but that's not what we should be looking at to say they can make money at it.
The benefit to the applicant should not be outweighed by the harm to the general public. I think the general public has a big picture not harmed by this.
And I'm looking at the general public, although I will say I'm never pleased when there's a business that operates without going through the proper channels. But I guess I would say, from what I heard after the fact, is that it is a unique business. It's not something you see everywhere, and people are attending. So I think from that point, when I look at it and I say, well, was it in the benefit of the general public? I'd say, yeah, it is, that people are going there. Now, if there was the flip side of the coin was if there was a business there and it was majorly disrupted, if they were putting on concerts or something like that, I would say, hey, that's not a benefit to that area.
I know I wouldn't appreciate that if it was real loud, for sure.
Right.
No, I think overall, it does appear that the immediate abutters around have a different feel. I think the general overall population is probably better served.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tricky question.
Well, when you say substantial justice, it's like,
You got it. Number 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished. Expert testimony on this question is not conclusive but cannot be ignored. The board may also consider other evidence of the effect on property values, including personal knowledge themselves.
If I recall, in Mrs. Clark's package, there was a letter from a realtor just talking in generalities that they felt it could have an effect. I know because I walked that area quite a bit that prior, and I'm not timing it to when tea parties went or whatnot, but that back area was a sore eye and it has been cleaned up.
Back where the parking lot is.
Yes,
and-
yes, yeah. And it's been cleaned up, which I think is a benefit. If
That would
I were in a
definitely-
butter and I saw that get cleaned up, I'd be pleased. How you have a tea party that would bring down the value?
I think you require such an elegant place to hold this that you're gonna be forced to maintain a high level of
Yeah.
peak performance that,
And my first thought on that, because it came up in one of the meetings, was, you know, and I kind of agreed with it, well, yeah, why don't you put it in Village District 2, someplace outside of that area? And I started thinking, well, where would I want to go to a tea if I went to a tea? And I'd want to go to an elegant house, you know, an old house. And said, I think she's got the facility to house something like that to make it inviting and, oh, we're gonna go to a tea in a suiting
Quaint little
facility.
village.
Yeah,
it is uniquely set up to
Yeah.
suit this well, for sure.
and I think if we, as the conditions, and I think it was part of theirs, was that it's screen plantings or whatever in the few areas that aren't already screened, cause from the site walk, you could see most of it was already screened.
Most of it was screened, yeah.
Uh,
I would say the surrounding property values, I mean, just from my experience, if just picture like a more city area, you walk by now like an outdoor seating establishment, the lights hanging everywhere and loud music going, that to me is a huge turn off.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
Actually, I think this, what they list for is noise on the,
They were just saying that they would comply with the New Ipswich noise ordinance, and I think it was Mr. O'Leary had presented the New Ipswich noise ordinance, and I will agree with him. It's
pretty minimal.
minimal at best and enforceable by complaint. Plural. It's difficult, and we are a small town. We don't have the resources to have
Full-time.
the enforcement magnitude that a city would have. It's the way it is. But one of the things that came up and is it, I don't really see, this doesn't do anything, I believe, for our taxes. You know, whether this business is there or not, the town collects the taxes on the property. The only positive side is, you know, they're going to be required as part of their license with the state for the rooms and meals tax, which eventually does
Trickles
filter
a little
back
bit,
to
yeah.
us, but it's nothing to do with our property tax in
Right.
reality.
It's gonna
Minimal.
keep on being what it is
Yeah.
anyways, it's a
Yeah.
non-change.
And, you know, I think if it was a good venue there, seeing does that increase the property values or not, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think
it
it's just gonna stay
changes-
status quo.
I think it's gonna stay
Agreed,
status quo. I agree that it is kind of a big, a centerpiece, front and center type house when you go through there.
I think we agree it's not gonna diminish the property values. Do we agree?
I agree. Number 5, the little enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship, which can be shown in either of two ways. Is that right?
Results in unnecessary hardship to the owner before the,
'Cause of
because the following special conditions of the property distinguish it from other properties in the area.
The applicant must establish that the property is burdened by the zoning restrictions in a manner that is distinct from other land in the area. Determine the purpose of the zoning restriction in question. The applicant must establish that because of the special conditions of the property, the restriction as applied to the property does not serve the purpose in a fair and substantial way. And B, the applicant must establish that the special conditions of the property cause the proposed use to be reasonable. The use must not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. It is one of the bigger pieces in Bank Village. Well,
that's what they
technically,
were,
but
writing for, the literal enforcement, but I don't see the
I don't-
size of the property of how
I'm just thinking
that's
of
gonna
distinct.
tie to it. And you gotta say, well, what does this property have that would result in an unnecessary hardship? I think if we're trying to look at it to say, well, if we go by the strict enforcement of the ordinance, in my understanding here is that when I look at it and I say, well, geez, if I just say, well, we have the ordinance that says only this is allowed there, and I looked at those special exceptions and I see inns and bed and breakfasts, I think it almost equates to this is what they're doing. They're just doing it at a different time of day. You go to inns and they have afternoon teas. I shouldn't say not the way she's doing it, because I don't know if they do it that way, but I have been at bed and breakfast inns and my wife goes to an afternoon tea. Not dressed up and whatnot, but they have it. So if you had if she were to say, I'm gonna do a bed and breakfast, and then does teas, what's the difference?
That's a good point. I would say also, you know, you listed inns and bed and breakfast, but, you know, nursing homes and daycare, you know, daycare nursery facilities where you have.
And that would be more
I
disruptive.
feel like that'd be more disruptive.
Yeah, I certainly would not. No prejudice to daycare centers, but I don't know that I'd want one next
I
door.
feel like there'd be a little more noise.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
less class.
Yes.
So
that's how I'm looking at strict enforcement is a hardship because
very similar things
they're
are
the same.
allowed.
Yeah.
Same
You
thing,
know,
yep.
if I had this other business, then I could do it and I qualify, but I don't wanna change beds. You know, I just wanna do teas, so.
That's good.
I agree.
No fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. Well, that's the one at 1.5A.
Yeah, determine the purpose of the zoning restriction in question. The applicant must establish that because of the special conditions of the property, the restriction as applied to the property does not serve that purpose in a fair and substantial way. And I think what we just discussed is that they have that facility there, which is appropriate. And if we apply that restrictions, doesn't serve the public interest.
Yeah, like you said, it's the same thing, just different, breaking out at different business hours.
Yeah. And that was one thing that I was pleased to hear was, you know, trying to reduce the hours so that
That was
it addressed
helpful.
some of the concerns.
Right, yeah.
The proposed use is a reasonable one. the applicant must establish that the special conditions of the property cause the proposed use to be reasonable. The use must not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. It's definitely in quite the location for it, picturesque, but not alter the character of the neighborhood. That makes me chew a little bit.
I don't think it's gonna alter the neighborhood. I would agree it would, not that it would alter it, but it would have, I'll say, an impact if they didn't have a proposed parking area. You know,
Oh,
I
it
guess
definitely
if
was
you were
impacting
lined up
before.
both sides of River Road, and from my memory, I don't think there were no parking signs on both sides of the road, and if you had cars on both sides, it could become an issue. I just don't. And again, when I sit here in this position, I always gotta try and remember is we are in a rural area of the state, and how much traffic actually is on River Road. You know, yes, there is traffic, but we're not talking
It's not I-93.
Mass Ave in
No.
Boston or something, you know, so.
No, and not that it's obviously not a appropriate business model to just say our parking lot is the street. That kind of, I would say that burdens, but because of the parking lot being constructed
Yeah.
for this specific reason to alleviate that problem, it really.
And I would hope that the planning board in their purview will address the requirements of that parking area and the upgrades that I think are gonna be necessary there, or could be necessary. That was it. So if we met all of them, and if we agree, there's notes that I have here, and I'd like to put in the record, the criteria that the applicant had proposed, including the revisions. Can have the opportunity to go through my notes to see if there were any other items that may not be on here that should
Probably
be.
should.
Should be.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Alright, just so that Susan, I'm gonna start with a motion.
I was just gonna say, do you want me to make a copy that we can mark up
Copy of what?
the conditions? Is that what?
I'm gonna get
Okay,
to
we get to
theirs,
that.
but I'm going through my notes with
Okay.
conditions that I think should be there. That we just
Gotcha.
spoke about, if you guys can revise them, this is just a motion. I'd make a motion to approve the application for a variance to Article 4, Section C of the zoning ordinance with the following conditions. The applicant provide stamped engineered septic plan to show septic design should their septic system need to be replaced.
And that's in a full size?
Yep, stamped, engineered.
Yeah.
In other words, the one that we have now isn't stamped, it's just
So I just
preliminary.
wanted to
Yeah.
add that.
Yep. that the interior conditions of the fire chief and local code enforcement officer be met. B, approval is for tea party events only. B, applicant received planning board approval. This one, this one.
Anything else for a plan? Actually, I was gonna go to zoning board.
That's gonna go to planning board. They'll pick up the layout,
They
they've
already
got the wetlands,
got the wetlands.
it's stamped. And, you know, then I would like to include the conditions that were provided by Silver Scones this evening with the modification to bullet item number 3 to revise the operating hours for the business from 9 AM to 6 PM. Now, one of the questions that was asked was regarding the 30-day window. When does it start? Is it monthly or rolling 30? How do you wanna clarify that? I'm thinking per month.
I like monthly.
Monthly, yeah,
Yeah.
because nobody can
Right.
characterize the 30 days, so that if we can clarify that the operating hours is 4 days per month.
Is
I
it,
would,
sorry.
on the conditions for the variances, bullet item number 5, I think we could delete since we're requesting the upgraded septic design plan. And that plan would go to the state of New Hampshire. I would strike bullet item 8 regarding the exit signs and leave that under our clause that they meet the requirements of the fire chief and the building inspector.
The one that says interior battery?
Yes,
Okay, strike it,
yes.
and it's in the, okay.
Yeah. I would put under the conditions for the variance for where they're having exterior signage,
Mhm.
that the signage permit be applied for and approved, and that the temporary signage be removed the day of each event, cause they're asking for temporary signage to guide people in the parking lot. I would, whenever somebody says temporary, the question comes up, how long is temporary?
So the temporary signage is only for the event?
Only for the event, so, which is to guide them to the parking lot, so that should be removed each day of the event. I believe the items for the occupancy limit and the smoke alarm and CO2 could be deleted because that'll go back to the requirements of the fire chief and the code enforcement officer. I think the powder room can be deleted. The off-road parking, I would just put on there is that off-road parking will be required and this will be part of the planning board approval process.
Off-road parking, I'm just saying.
Right, they're asking for.
I'm saying it for this.
Okay.
Off-road parking,
Off-road parking to be determined by the planning board,
okay.
or off-road parking requirements. And I guess a good one to leave on there, make it a new bullet item, is the last sentence of that one says, no parking shall be allowed on the Monadnock Conservancy easement. I think if we left that as a bulleted item. And the last item, again, will fall under, code enforcement and fire chief for access for walking path. Anything I missed, you guys wanna add?
Is it worth adding something on noise specifically? Or is that too hard to quantify?
That's, if you can figure a way of quantifying it, that's why I'm thinking, when the applicant agreed to go to 6 p.m., I said, in my mind, that's good.
Yes.
Our noise ordinance starts at 7, so
I guess. People
before
aren't
that,
going to bed by then.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
winding up early enough.
Right.
So
True.
I
That's
can't
true.
picture them to be too noisy at an event. But
Tea
Yeah.
parties could be loud. I've never been, but I heard they're wild.
anything you wanna add or modify?
Was lighting addressed, or is that going to be
Lighting,
all?
the only lighting that they had, and I said, well, that will be part of the code enforcement, was a low impact ground lighting on their walkway, but, you know, they can pretty much put anything there. They need, it's on their property, it's their safety, it's their liability.
Yeah,
Make
I guess
sure
I was thinking more of.
Parking lot lighting, the planning board will address.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Cause we do have a whole section on that.
Night skies and all
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
Okay, second?
Unless you
Is
don't
there
wanna
any-
add or modify.
I don't have anything to add or more.
Will the planning board spell out, it's gotta be gravel or paved or type of fence, that's all gonna go through them. I don't have anything to add. So you made the motion?
I made the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, you just
Thank you.
received approval.
Thank you.
So the motion is to accept and just
Yes, that's how I
It's all-
started it off.
That was a long,
But Article 4, Section C.
Thank you.
That's what I was looking for, but
Yeah, Article, that's when I started it off. I made a motion to approve the, application for variance in accordance with Article 4, Section C, C of the Brookfield zoning.
So I will get this typed up, I'll send out all three of you, let's hear for that.
We got some notes on it. Yeah, send it over to us.
We got some notes, yeah, it might take a day or two.
That's fine.
So it'll be next week.
That would be the. So we need to have like a whole special one that goes in like a fire holder.
Do you want this?
She should have you.
We take a quick break before Rachel's.
Sure.
Just have to
Yeah.
get some water.
Yeah,
This all goes to Susan.
Over all these.
And, the sign-in sheet.
Sign-in sheet.
And this.